Chapter 2676. Guan Xinxiu is doing well. Emperor Rui and the others had been observing the situation. The tables had turned. Guan Xinxiu's team clearly had the upper hand. Victory was in sight. Yes, the Guan family kid is brave and smart. He is talented as well. He is a good seedling. The arching nodded slightly. He had been paying close attention to the situation of Guan Xinxiu and the others. If such outstanding seedlings were to be recruited and nurtured, they would become the cornerstones of the Celestial Emperor's sect in the future. Just now, Guan Xinxiu's team was on the verge of defeat. Now that the tables had been turned, Emperor Heng thought highly of him. This kid is not a good guy. Emperor Wu was not a fan of intrigue. He snorted. Hu Shimeng went to help him, but he stabbed him in the back. What a jerk. Emperor Rui and Emperor Heng looked at each other and forced a smile. As far as they could tell, in a real battle, anything could be used. No matter what tricks were used, as long as one could win and survive, it was a victory. Warriors that could reach the level of emperors had gone through many trials and tribulations. They had seen all kinds of situations. Emperor Rui and Emperor Heng might be disdainful, but they were used to it. How did the martial emperor, a one-track-minded martial arts fanatic, survive for so many years? Aha, Emperor Rui, Emperor Wu suddenly said with a strange smile. The one at the peak of the fourth tribulation that you think is going to be eliminated. In the face of absolute power, no tricks or plots will work. No matter how many tricks he has, he can overcome them with force. Emperor Rui smiled, but did not argue. Indeed, no tricks or plots would work in this situation. The second, fourth, and 10th teams were strong enough to defeat the rest. What was more, Lu Li's team had helped Guan Xinxiu before. The rest did not trust them anymore. Lu Li was troubled as well. He thought quickly and looked at the group on the left. After some thoughts, he said, "Guys, the second group, the fourth group, and the 10th group have joined hands. Only 3 groups can advance. If we don't join hands, then we can just admit defeat. If we all work together, we will have a glimmer of hope. If we don't, only death awaits us." Those on the other side understood this as well. That being said, they had no trust in Lu Li's team. If so, then there was no point in working together. They would be defeated one by one. "Attack!" Guan Xinxiu shouted. More than a dozen warriors flew over like sharp swords. Their target was Lu Li, Ning Shui, and Heavenly Leaf. Lu Li made up his mind and took the initiative to fight. At the same time, he said to Wang Ningxue and the twins, "I will hold them off. You guys work together to attack. Also, go and get those over there to join forces with us. If we don't work together, we'll definitely lose." Lu Li's message surprised the 3 of them. Lu Li was going to stop them. What could he use to resist? Even Hu Shimeng was severely injured in an instant. Although he, a peak 4 tribulation cultivator, had a good defense, he would be killed instantly if he tried to withstand it. Right? Lu Li took a pellet, the one that could enhance his abilities. As soon as the pellet entered his mouth, a surge of heat spread across his body. Lu Li felt his physical strength, divine energy, soul, and other abilities were improving. Xiao! Lu Li released his dragon wrestling skill and heaven armor skill. At the same time, he released his armor and his chi and blood surged. He stood in front of the warriors like an ancient demon. Humph. Guan Xinxiu and the others snorted. They felt Lu Li was a lamb trying to stop a group of tigers. 5 or 6 of them attacked at the same time. But considering that Lu Li's realm was too low, none of them dared to use moves that were too powerful for fear that they might kill Lu Li directly. Swish, swish, whoosh, 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 boom, 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 boom. 6 attacks landed on Lu Li. The armor he was wearing could not stand it any longer. It fell apart at once. Lu Li was knocked back for more than 100 feet. Blood spilled out. He was covered in blood. Guan Xinxiu and the others were surprised. They didn't know that Lu Li's defense was this strong. He was only knocked back for more than 100 feet. He seemed to be injured in many places, but they were only flesh wounds. He was not seriously injured. Woo-woo, Lu Li took out his horn. Instead of retreating, he moved forward. He blew the horn in a low and deep voice. Invisible waves spread out in a fan shape and enveloped all the warriors that were coming at him. The more than a dozen warriors slowed down. They were surprised. One of them even hugged his head and moaned. Luli had already made 11 abominable talismans secretly. He smashed them at the warriors. Boom, boom, boom. 5 abominable talismans smashed at the warrior who was hugging his head and moaning in pain. His armor was broken as well. Clearly, he was injured. The other 6 abominable talismans smashed at the other 3 warriors, but they were not injured. What? Wang Ningxue and the others didn't take any actions. They were communicating with the warriors in the distance. They were all stunned. How could a warrior at the peak of the 4th tribulation be so strong? He had stopped 11 warriors by himself? He even took out a secret artifact to release soul attacks that affected everyone, and one of them was injured. Move! Wang Ningxue and the others were not idiots. No matter how long Lu Li could last, at least he had the upper hand in terms of momentum, which created a good opportunity. She dashed over. At the same time, she glanced at the more than a dozen warriors in the corner. She stopped talking and shouted, "What are you waiting for? If you want to admit defeat, do it now. If you don't want to be eliminated, then do it together. If we don't defeat them, none of us will survive." Jun Tianyi rushed over as well. He yelled, "Let's go together and kill them." Gu Shanqiu was a man of few words, but he was smart. He yelled as well, "Let's go together. Kill them, and we will have a chance to win." The encouraging words of the 3 and Lu Li's bravery had tempted everyone. One of them made up his mind and said, "Let's go and kill Guan Qinxiu and the others." With someone taking the lead, the rest was easier. The more than a dozen warriors dashed over and began to attack from all sides. In an instant, Guan Qinxiu and the others felt they were besieged. Kill this bastard first. Because of Lu Li, the favorable situation was about to be ruined. Guan Qinxiu was boiling with rage. He suddenly vanished in midair and reappeared in front of Lu Li. He aimed at Lu Li and tried to stab at Lu Li, sovereign weapon. At this moment, Lu Li felt he was being targeted by a powerful beast. His blood froze, and his divine energy was in a mess. The extreme pressure made him feel his blood vessels were about to explode. Lu Li's speed must be slowed down by the sovereign weapon. It would be difficult for him to dodge. He made up his mind and took out that painting to see if he could use it to stop the sovereign weapon. Buzzing. That painting came out and stood in front of Lu Li. The sovereign weapon came at him as well. Guan Qinxiu's eyes were filled with mockery. Did Lu Li think a painting could stop him? What? Chapter 2677. Tens of millions of people were gathered outside. Most of them were staring at Lu Li's side. Since there were more powerful warriors here, the fight must be the fiercest. Many people were exclaiming in satisfaction that the tables were turned. When Lu Li fended off Guan Qinxiu's attack with a painting of mountains and rivers, the people outside were even more shocked. Guan Qinxiu was the most popular one. His abilities were horrifying. He attacked Lu Li with his sovereign weapon, and Lu Li stopped it. What was more, Guan Qinxiu was frightened. "You have been tricked." Lu Li's expressions were cold. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. He sped up and dashed toward Guan Qinxiu with the painting in his hand. Guan Qinxiu kept stepping back because he felt the suction force from the painting was getting stronger. If the sovereign weapon or even himself were sucked in, how could he fight? Guan Qinxiu was taken aback by Lu Li's words. Right at that moment, the horn disappeared from Lu Li's hand, and the 7-colored, glazed pagoda appeared. The pagoda flew up to the sky. The door opened and spun quickly. A strong suction force enveloped Lu Li and Guan Qinxiu at the same time. Guan Qinxiu was in a dilemma. If he could let go of the sovereign weapon, he could leave easily. The thing was, the sovereign weapon was the family heirloom. How could he let it go? The suction force from his 7-colored glazed pagoda was so strong that Guan Qinxiu could not stand it any longer. He was sucked in along with Lu Li. But as soon as Lu Li went in, he put away the painting and teleported himself out. Hiss, hiss, the people nearby sucked in a breath of cold air. Guan Qinxiu had been suppressed. This warrior at the peak of the 4th tribulation had a sovereign weapon and a miraculous one at that. It could suck people in? Lu Li stood in midair, bleeding in some places. Holding the 7-colored glazed pagoda in his hand, He put on a solemn look. Nobody thought highly of Lu Li before. But now, they felt this warrior at the peak of the fourth tribulation was terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. More than a dozen people worked together with Wang Ningxue, Heaven's Leaf, and the Ancient Hill. The remaining warriors of the fourth group were already injured. Now that Guan Qinxiu was trapped by Lu Li, the others were panicking. Guan Qinxiu was their soul. In addition, there were so many of them working together. 2 of them were injured at once. They had to admit defeat and were teleported out. There were also 3 others who were seriously injured. 2 of them were teleported out. The tables had turned once again. The second, fourth, and 10th groups originally had 14 people, but now there were only 8 left. Including Lu Li, there were 17 or 18 of them. Boom! On this side, another person was heavily injured and fainted. He was directly eliminated and sent out. However, anyone with a discerning eye knew that it was only a matter of time before these 3 groups were eliminated. Wang Ningxue was like a ghost. She kept flashing and launching sneak attacks. Group 2, 4, and 10 found it difficult to organize a limited counterattack. They could only passively take the hits. The tables have turned. Outside, Emperor Rui laughed, but Emperor Hung curled his lips and said, "This kid actually has an emperor weapon? Could he be a disciple of a big clan?" Emperor Wu had always found Lu Li an eyesore. He curled his lips and said, "How far can a person like him go when he cannot keep up with his own abilities and has been relying on external forces?" The Rui Emperor smiled and said nothing, continuing to watch the battle. Even though Lu Li had an emperor weapon, Emperor Wu felt that Lu Li was not a disciple of a big family. Instead, Lu Li's temperament was similar to Emperor Wu's, like a disciple from a poor family who had fought his way up from the bottom. *T. This Lu Li has an emperor weapon. I am so screwed. This punk has been hiding his abilities and has trapped us. Is he the apprentice of a peerless demon? Very likely. Otherwise, how can he be so insidious? I bet on Guan Qinxiu. Later, when I have the chance, I will cut that bastard Lu Li into pieces. It was noisy outside. Countless people were cursing, and many people were cheering. Some had bet on Wang Ningxue and Jun Tianyi to advance. Some had bet on Lu Li as well, hoping for an upset. The odds were high. Clearly, they had made a fortune. Some were happy while others were sad. The battle inside gradually became clearer. Out of the 3 groups of people, only 4 were still fighting with their lives on the line. The rest had all been eliminated and sent out. As a matter of fact, the other battlefield was also very intense. There were only 30 people left out of 50, and the remaining 20 had all been eliminated. However, there was nothing much to see there. The 2 stronger teams had already been confirmed to advance, and it was only a matter of which team would advance. Boom, 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 boom. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, the 2nd, 4th, and 10th groups had all been eliminated. Apart from Guan Qinxiu, the others were all sent out. Lu Li didn't use the 7-colored glazed pagoda anymore. He only used the honesty talisman to support his attacks. That being said, he had been holding the pagoda. It was like a sword hanging over everyone's head, exerting great pressure. Inside, Guan Qinxiu was being refined, enduring several kinds of attacks. He had been attacking the 7-colored glazed pagoda with his emperor weapon, but the pagoda was marked with the formation of Reincarnation the Emperor. Not even a lord could crack it, let alone a warrior at the peak of the 5th tribulation. Lu Li, Guan Qinxiu was smart. After a while, he made sure that he could not crack the pagoda. Then, he stopped and shouted, "How about we make a deal?" Lu Li had been paying attention to the situation inside, fearing that the 7-colored glazed pagoda would be cracked. Naturally, he heard Guan Qinxiu's words. After some thoughts, Lu Li said, "What deal? Let me out later and help me advance. I will give you 1 trillion divine stones." Guan Qinxiu said, "You have made it. How many groups are left? Let them fight for a while. When there are only 2 groups left, let me out. You and I could defeat a group easily." "Ha." Lu Li smiled and replied, "What can you do with 1 trillion divine stones? That is too low." Lu Li and the others had made it to the next round. At the moment, The four of them had stepped to the side, making it clear that they would not participate in the following fights. They had taken one group. Naturally, the remaining two places would be fought for by the remaining people. There were not many people left, but there were many groups. Some groups only had one person left. In the semifinals, it didn't matter how many people were left in a group. As long as there was one person in a group, the entire group would advance. Nobody could shake Lu Li's group. The more than a dozen people left would have to fight for the remaining two places. By then, it would be another messy fight. After a messy fight, there might be only 2 or 3 people left in the two groups. If Lu Li and Guan Qinxiu worked together, then it was possible that Guan Qinxiu could get place. Of course, Guan Qinxiu's offer was too low. Also, he was backstabbing Hu Shimeng. Hu Shimeng was still in a coma. Just now, Guan Qinxiu tried to kill him. Lu Li did not like Guan Qinxiu. 1 trillion divine stones. Guan Qinxiu made another offer. As a matter of fact, Lu Li did not want to help Guan Qinxiu. After a while, Lu Li said, "Give me your sovereign weapon and I will help you this once." Okay, deal. Chapter 2678. The sovereign weapon was important. It was the family heirloom of the Guan family. But between a sovereign weapon and a disciple of the Celestial Emperor's sect, the latter was more important. More importantly, Lu Li had no powerful background. Therefore, Guan Qinxiu was confident that he could redeem the sovereign weapon. The Guan family had some influence. They had connections in the Celestial Emperor's sect. Guan Qinxiu's sixth grandpa was a patriarch of the Celestial Emperor's sect. If Lu Li could join the Celestial Emperor's sect, Guan Qinxiu could find a way to ask his sixth grandpa to pay some divine stones or treasures to redeem the sovereign weapon. If Lu Li could not join the Celestial Emperor's sect, then it would be even easier. The Guan family could send out some powerful warriors to kill Lu Li and take the sovereign weapon back. Lu Li was embarrassed by Guan Qinxiu's straightforward answer. He had made a big promise, and now he could not back down. He thought for a moment and said, "Deactivate the spiritual connection with the sovereign weapon and throw it on the ground. I will get the sovereign weapon first, and then I will help you." Okay. Guan Qinxiu was an ambitious man. He was decisive. He took out the sovereign weapon, deactivated the spiritual connection, and threw it on the ground. Lu Li sent the sovereign weapon out and put it into his interspatial ring. He checked with psychic power and found that the spiritual connection was indeed gone. He checked the sovereign weapon and said to Guan Qinxiu, "Okay, deal is done. I will let you out when they are done." Wang Mingxue, Jun Tianai, and the others were with Lu Li. They noticed that something was wrong with Lu Li, but said nothing. After all, they had made it to the next round mainly because of Lu Li. They would not say anything if Lu Li wanted to do something. The fight had begun. Nobody dared to target Lu Li's team. All 4 of them were strong, especially when Lu Li could defeat Guan Qinxiu. They would not be courting death. Out of the 3 spots, Lu Li's team only occupied 1 spot. There were still 2 spots left. Although there were 4 teams left, 2 of them only had 1 person and 2 people left. As long as they could defeat these 3, they would be guaranteed to advance. Naturally, those 2 teams were not convinced. They fought back with all their might, thinking that even if they were to lose, they could inflict some serious damage to the other teams. Furthermore, 2 of them had clearly swallowed pills that increased their battle prowess, causing their battle prowess to soar. The 2 teams were not in a hurry. Lu Li and the other 3 would not attack. Once the effects of the pellets wore off, they would be able to advance. Therefore, the other 2 teams began to attack from a distance to buy time. Boom! The 3 of them were furious. 3 of them attacked 1 person, and that person finally couldn't take it anymore. He fainted and was eliminated. The 2 teams on the other side were also furious. If this went on, wouldn't they be defeated one by one? Both teams began to fight with all their might, and the battle became particularly intense. Boom, 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 boom. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the 3 of them were severely injured. The 2 teams had also suffered heavy losses. One team had 3 people left, while the other had 2 people left. The faces of these 5 people were filled with joy. They had finally won. They had entered the top 30. After waiting for a while, the five of them felt that something was wrong. This was because they had not teleported out. The battle had already ended, so they should have all teleported out. However, no one was teleported out, which meant that the battle was not over. "What's the situation?" One of them murmured suspiciously. "Aside from our three groups, there are no other groups. Why haven't we teleported out yet?" "Something's wrong." Someone suddenly came to his senses and shouted, "There is one more person in Lu Li's sovereign weapon. Guan Xinqiu is in there. The fight is not over yet." Everyone turned to Lu Li, who said with a smile, "Yes, the fight is not over yet." Buzzing, the seven-colored glazed pagoda glowed as Guan Xinqiu came out. Lu Li said with a smile, "You have to defeat him to truly end the fight." Swish, 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 the five people's expressions changed. Guan Xinqiu had not suffered any serious injuries, so he alone was enough to suppress the other two. The faces of the five people turned pale, and then they became angry. One of them glared at Lu Li and said, "Young Master Lu, what is the meaning of this? Don't you hate Guan Xinqiu? Why are you helping him now? Is this fair to young Master Hu? What do you mean by hate?" Lu Li shrugged and said, "The recruitment ceremony is just a competition. There is no hate. We will compete on the same stage, and we will show our skills in order to get into the Heaven Emperor sect. As long as it is within the rules, it is an achievement. What is more, young Master Guan has given me a sovereign weapon. This is a good deal, so I must do it. I am sorry." Sovereign weapon. They were speechless. What else was there to say when Lu Li had offered a sovereign weapon? The two teams were secretly on guard, especially the team with only two people who were even more nervous. Whoosh! Guan Xinqiu made a move. As expected, his target was the two. At the same time, Lu Li moved as well to help Guan Xinqiu. Since he had promised Guan Xinqiu, Lu Li must keep his word. The two of them were already injured. One of them had a big hole in his chest while the other had a broken hand. The two of them had fought fiercely just now. Seeing Guan Xinqiu and Lu Li coming at them, the two closed their eyes in despair and shouted at the same time, "I give up." What? The crowd was in an uproar. Guan Xinqiu's team was overjoyed. It felt so good to go from hell to heaven. At first, they were thinking about how to explain to their families when they got back. Little did they expect to be surprised. Those who had bet on Guan Xinqiu's advancement were also ecstatic. They felt as though a cooked duck had flown away, and then this duck had flown back and brought back a turkey. There is something wrong with this punk's character. On the peak of Fairy, Emperor Wu found Lu Li to be an eyesore. He snorted and said, "He is fickle. For a sovereign weapon, he can turn enemies into friends. Even if he were to join the Celestial Emperor sect, he will only be a scourge. I suggest we disqualify him. Rules are rules. He did not break the rules, so we cannot disqualify him." The Rue Emperor said indifferently, then added, "He's not wrong. This is just a competition, not a true life and death enemy. To him, it's the same no matter who advances. Why can't he obtain an Emperor weapon?" Emperor Hung nodded as well. This is not a problem with his character, and he did not break the rules. Didn't Guan Xinqiu stab him in the back? As long as it is within the rules, there is nothing to say. Emperor Wu snorted and said, "Anyways, I don't like this punk. If he joins the Celestial Emperor sect, I will make him suffer and force him to quit the sect." On the other side, the competition had come to an end. 6 teams had come out, and the top 30 had been determined. Patriarch Gu announced the names of the top 30. The final match would be held in half a month at the Peak of Fairy. The final match was to decide who could join the Celestial Emperor sect. The top 10 could become disciples of the Celestial Emperor sect directly, and the 11th to 20th would become registered disciples. This is the last round. Chapter 2679. Lu Li went back to the Celestial Emperor city. He had only rested for a day when someone came to him. The first one was Hu Shiming. He had recovered a bit, but not completely. He hurried to the door. When Lu Li opened the door, Hu Shiming dragged Lu Li outside. "What are you doing, Brother Hu?" Lu Li was not worried that Hu Shiming would do something reckless in the city. He didn't look like he was going to do that either. Hu Shiming waved his hand and said, "Brother Lu, don't ask too many questions. Just go with me." I don't think I will harm you." Since Hu Shiming had called him brother, Lu Li didn't ask any more questions. He followed Hu Shiming out of the tavern. There was a luxurious chariot parked outside. There were 6 beautiful beasts pulling the chariot. Behind them was a team of warriors. Hu Shiming pulled Lu Li onto the chariot in a friendly manner. The chariot sped away. Lu Li sat down and asked with a smile, "Brother Hu, where are you taking me?" "I'm taking you to a good place." Hu Shiming grinned and said, "Brother, I am here today to apologize and thank you. You don't have to worry about anything and just listen to me. How about that?" "Okay." Lu Li didn't ask any more questions. Hu Shiming was knocked out and teleported away. When he woke up, Hu Shiming realized that he had made the breakthrough. Before he passed out, he had lost all hope. How could he not be happy when he woke up to find that he had gone from hell to heaven? Therefore, after a day of healing, he came to Lu Li to repay his kindness. Lu Li was taken to an average-looking manor. The manor was large, but it didn't look imposing. There were no warriors guarding at the gate. Only an old servant was there to welcome guests. Hu Shiming must be a regular here. When the old servant saw the chariot, he opened the door and let them in. The chariot circled around the manor and stopped outside a castle. At the gate of the castle stood a charming lady in a gorgeous dress. When Hu Shiming and the others came down, she put on a gentle smile. Instead of flattering them, she said to Hu Shiming like they were old friends, "Young Master Ming, same rules?" "No." Hu Shiming waved his hand and said, "This time, give me the highest standard. They're my honored guests." "You must be young Master Lu?" The charming lady bowed to Lu Li and said, "My name is Qing Ping, the manager of this place. Right now, young Master Lu's name has spread throughout Celestial City. It's our honor to have you come to our gentle home. If young Master Lu comes here in the future, we'll give you a 20% discount." "Qingping, you're going too far," Hu Shiming said discontentedly. "How many parangons have I spent here? You just gave me a 20% discount. As soon as Lu Li came, you gave him a 20% discount. Are you looking down on me, or are you interested in my brother Lu?" "Young Master Who must be joking." Qing Ping threw Lu Li an amorous glance and said, "Young Master Lu, you are so young, handsome, and heroic. Your future is limitless. Qingping is getting old. Even if I have some thoughts, young Master Lu won't like me. The land of tenderness is the grave of a hero." Lu Li touched his nose and realized what this place was. It was a brothel of a higher class. He just smiled at Qing Ping and Hu Shiming's attempts to curry favor with him. He had never liked this kind of place. But since Hu Shiming had brought him here, he couldn't say no. That would be a slap on Hu Shiming's face. Everyone walked in. To Lu Li's surprise, it wasn't the kind of place where there was too much makeup. Instead, it was very elegant. There were several women playing instruments and 4 women dancing in the middle. 2 golden tables were filled with bejeweled nectar and fruits. After Hu Shiming and Lu Li sat down, Qing Ping clapped her hands and 4 girls walked in. Lu Li was surprised when he took a look. The 4 girls that walked in were all stunningly beautiful. They didn't seem to be prostitutes at all. Instead, they each had their own unique temperament. It seemed that the 4 were not girls from a brothel, but young ladies of the highest level. The 4 girls walked over separately, 2 on each side. One poured wine for Lu Li and the other massaged his legs. They didn't seem to be trying to curry favor with him. Instead, they were like old friends, giving people a sense of intimacy. There was a faint fragrance coming from the 2 girls. It was not perfume, but the body fragrance of a girl. It smelled good. Hu Shiming kept toasting. He was straightforward and didn't hide anything. He said he was grateful for Lu Li's help. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to reach the next level, and he would be too ashamed to go back to his family. He made it clear that he owed Lu Li a favor, and he would do it as long as it was within his power. Lu Li liked Hu Shiming's straightforward character. They ate and drank to their heart's content. Hu Shiming took the 2 girls to his room to fool around. Lu Li had 2 beautiful girls sitting next to him, so he could do whatever he wanted. But he didn't. He said goodbye and left after a while. Not long after he came back, Guan Qinqiu sent someone to invite Lu Li again. Lu Li had attended Hu Shiming's banquet before, and he had to go again. Guan Xinqiu invited many young masters and young ladies, not just Guan Xinqiu. Everyone in his group came. They all addressed Lu Li as brothers and were very friendly. Lu Li was speechless. After he came back from the banquet, Lu Li received more invitations. This time, he didn't go anywhere. He stayed in the tavern to cultivate. Even though he had made it to the top 30, he didn't feel complacent. He knew very well that he was blessed to have made it this far. Good luck would not be with him forever. If he didn't try his best in the finals, he would still be eliminated easily. For warriors in the endless ruins, joining the Heaven Emperor sect could change their fate. Maybe their families could enjoy a meteoric rise as well. But for Lu Li, the Heaven Emperor sect had a different meaning. Whether he could join the Heaven Emperor sect would determine whether he could save Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong. Lu Ling was more important than his life. Time flew by. Half a month had passed. Half a day earlier, Lu Li washed up and had a good meal. He was at the peak of his mental state. The only pity was that he had been studying the soul skill for a long time, but he still hadn't mastered it. His abilities didn't improve either. Lu Li flew with the others and arrived at the peak of immortal. This time, there were not 2 shields, but 5. But they were all smaller. Clearly, this was not a free-for-all, but a one-on-one fight. This time, it was a test of real abilities. Trickery would not work. Without strong abilities, it would be hard for one to make it to the next round. Tens of millions of people gathered around. This was the last fight. Naturally, they would not miss it. Many people placed bets on who would win first or second place. The odds would be higher. This time, the master of the Heaven Emperor's sect didn't come either, which disappointed everyone. But this time, not only did 3 emperors come, but 2 more came. The Heaven Emperor sect attached great importance to the recruitment ceremony. When a piece of news came out, everyone was in an uproar. This time, the 2 emperors of the Heaven Emperor sect stated that they would choose one of the top 10 as their personal disciple. Chapter 2680. The news was spread out. The Celestial Emperor sect did not state their stance. That being said, there would be no smoke without fire. Since there was such a rumor, there must be 2 emperors with such thoughts. Otherwise, such a rumor would not have spread. An emperor was not the most powerful existence in the endless divine ruins. However, an emperor was still a very powerful existence and had a lot of resources. As long as one could become a disciple of an emperor of the Celestial Emperor sect, he or she would be known across the world and would be heavily trained by the Celestial Emperor sect. In hundreds or thousands of years, he or she would become a powerful warrior. He or she might not have a 100% chance of reaching the Emperor realm, but he or she would at least reach the quasi-Emperor realm. Those that could make it to the top 30 would not be weak in combat abilities or talents. Therefore, with the full support of the Celestial Emperor sect, it would be possible for them to become a powerful warrior. Lu Li was excited as well. If he could become a disciple of an emperor, then he or she could use the excuse of marriage to bring Lu Li and Xiang Linglong out of the Holy Maiden sect. Therefore, Lu Li made up his mind and was ready to risk his life. Patriarch Gu announced the rules. Many people were not surprised. As a matter of fact, they had guessed it when they saw there were 5 arenas. This is troublesome. Lu Li was troubled by the rules. The rules were against him. In order to make it to the top 10, he or she would have to fight head-on, and it all depended on his or her abilities. There were 5 martial arts arenas, and anyone could go up and accept everyone's challenge. Anyone could make it to the top 10 if they could win 5 in a row. The first one to win 5 in a row would be the number 1, and so on. After the 10th person won 5 in a row, the ceremony would come to an end. Registered disciples were not chosen randomly. It depended on the number of wins. For example, after 10 official disciples were chosen, if 3 of them won 4 matches, then these 3 would be considered honorary disciples. Then, if they won 3 matches or 2 matches, then the list would continue until 10 honorary disciples were chosen. In other words, there was no trickery in the finals. It was all about ability. Even if a big shot of the Celestial Emperor sect wanted to be partial to someone, he or she would not be able to win 3 in a row. He or she could not force the person to be a disciple. Lu Li's comprehensive abilities were not strong. There were too many people that could restrain him. Maybe he could win against some people, but to win consecutively would be too difficult. After all, there were too many powerful warriors. Lu Li had defeated Guan Xinxiu, but if he could fight with Guan Xinxiu again, Lu Li would not have the chance to defeat Guan Xinxiu. Instead, Guan Xinxiu could injure Lu Li badly. Do you have any other questions? Elder Gu glanced at the three of them and said, "If there are no more problems with the rules, then you can all leave. Same old rules, do not kill with malicious intent, or you will be directly disqualified. The 5 great thearchs are watching, so do your best." Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Elder Gu's last sentence made everyone nervous and excited. If he performed well and caught the attention of the 5 great emperors, not only would he be able to advance, he would also have the chance to become a great emperor's personal disciple. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let me go first. After everyone flew down, Hu Shiming was the first to rush to a martial arts field and shouted, "Whoever wants to compete with old Hu, come up." Xiu, Guan Xinxiu, Wang Ningxue, and 2 others also went up to a stage. They were the first to go up for 2 reasons. For one, they were confident in their abilities. For another, they wanted to advance to the next stage to be noticed by the great emperors so that they could be accepted as personal disciples. It was risky to be the first to go up. Continuous fights would give others a chance to take advantage of them. If they were defeated or seriously injured, then they would be in big trouble. By the time they recovered, the top 10 would have been full. Therefore, the 5 of them were courageous and confident in their abilities. When the 5 of them went up, the others had no choice but to go up and fight. But some of the more powerful ones were smart. They didn't go up right away. They wanted to wait for the 5 to fight for a few rounds before they could take advantage of the situation. Attrition warfare. This was the best way to test a warrior's abilities. The ones below could challenge continuously. For example, if one of them went up and fought with you for a while, even if he was injured and failed, he could go down a heel for a while, and then he could go up again. On the other hand, the ones on the stage could only fight hard even if they were injured. Anyone who won 4 rounds in a row would become the target of public criticism. Those powerful warriors would definitely make a move. Otherwise, if someone advanced to the next stage, there would be 1 less spot. Therefore, the rules of the tournament were cruel. It would not be easy for anyone to advance. 5 people went up. Lu Li didn't move. Even if he went up and defeated one of them, it wouldn't mean much to him. Once he won the stage, he would have to defend it. He would have to be challenged by others. Lu Li knew himself. The possibility of him winning 5 rounds in a row was too low. Therefore, he wanted to wait for several people to advance to the next stage. When 4 or 5 powerful warriors made it to the next stage, those people would naturally stop fighting. In that case, the competition would be smaller. Only then would he have a chance. The 5 arenas above had begun. Guan Xinxiu's sovereign weapon was gone. Another sword appeared in his hand. It was not a sovereign weapon, but it must be a treasure. It was mighty and intimidating. The first to win was Hu Shiming. Like his name, he was brave. He went up to a warrior at the peak of the 5th tribulation. Hu Shiming dashed over and took an attack from that warrior. Then, Hu Shiming released a move that wounded the warrior. His opponent was decisive. Why should he go on when he was injured? If he was seriously injured, he might not have another chance. Therefore, he admitted defeat. Losing 1 round didn't mean that there was no more chance. It didn't matter how many rounds you won or lost. As long as you could win 5 in a row, you could advance directly. The other 4 arenas were one-sided as well. The first batch of warriors were all powerful. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, they all won their first round easily. Even though 5 of them had won the first round, the remaining warriors didn't care. Winning 5 rounds in a row was not an easy task. Another 5 warriors went up to the 5 arenas one after another. The 5 of them were stronger, and they went up immediately. They would not give Guan Xinxiu, Wang Ningxue, and the others any time to rest. Boom, boom, boom. The fights were intense. Everyone wanted to win. Everyone wanted to perform well in front of the 5 emperors. Everyone wanted to become the emperor's personal apprentice. Therefore, nobody held back. Everyone unleashed their best abilities. The more they fought, the more frightened Lu Li became. Previously, when they were in a melee, these warriors would be mindful of others nearby. They would not give their all. Now that they were fighting one-on-one, they didn't have to worry about anything. All they had to do was defeat their opponents. Therefore, these warriors were able to unleash their full potential. Luli watched for a while. His heart was weighed down. Some of them were too strong. They could be comparable to lords. Given his abilities, if he were to fight them one-on-one, he would lose for sure. The onlookers were cheering. Such a fierce fight was happening right in front of their eyes. More importantly, many of them had placed their bets. When the person they bet on won, the crowd burst into cheers. Chapter 2681. Wang Ningxue's 5 consecutive victories wasn't because she was a beautiful young miss or because the Wang clan was powerful. It was because of her movement art. Wang Ningxue's movement art was the best, and her attacks were endless. Unless one fought her to the death, no one would be able to defeat her. But if both sides were injured, how would the challenger fight later? He could only watch as others advanced. Moreover, Wang Ningxue not only had a strange movement art, but she also had a powerful treasure to protect her. No one had absolute confidence in defeating her. Moreover, the Wang clan was very powerful. 2 of their experts were elders from the Celestial Emperor sect. Thus, they didn't want to offend the Wang clan, so they let Wang Ningxue advance. Wang Ningxue floated down from the stage with a flushed face. Being the first to advance meant that she would be number 1 in this recruitment ceremony. She would also be highly regarded by the Celestial Emperor sect and might even be taken in as a personal disciple. After so many years of hard work, she had finally achieved her long-cherished wish. This was like studying hard for 10 years and finally passing the imperial examinations. Not only had she won a good future for herself, but she had also won the Wang clan's reputation. With one less slot, everyone became nervous. Guan Qinxiu and Hu Shiming fought with all their might. The 2 attacked like a storm, defeating one opponent each. For consecutive victories, Guan Qinxiu and Hu Shiming had 4 consecutive victories. Everyone felt the pressure. If these 2 also advanced, the number of slots would be even fewer. One of them was an expert with a lot of support. He was also a young master from a prestigious clan, a disciple of the Celestial Emperor dynasty. He soared into the sky and charged into a stage. His opponent was Guan Qinxiu. Because Guan Qinxiu was injured and didn't have an imperial weapon, he was relatively easier to deal with. Hu Shiming's defense was too monstrous. Ordinary attacks couldn't injure him. Moreover, his attacks were very ferocious, and his character was also impulsive. I'll compete with young Master Hu. A peak 5th tribulation expert rushed up. He was also one of the 22 people. Moreover, he was a famous soul expert, much stronger than Jun Tianyi. He was the most suitable person to deal with Hu Shiming. The other 2 had won 3 rounds in a row. At this moment, they were also being attacked by powerful snipers. 2 experts rushed up and started to snipe them. The battle had also become particularly intense. Now, no one would give way. Even friends would fight to the bitter end. On the other martial arts stage, Wang Ningxue went down, and another person went up. However, that person was quickly defeated, but that person didn't manage to defend the stage and was immediately defeated. Luli didn't move. He just watched from below. Someone noticed him as well. Someone told him to go up and snipe Guan Qinxiu. After all, he had defeated Guan Qinxiu before. If Luli went up again, Guan Qinxiu might lose. Luli didn't pay any attention. He just stood there calmly. He needed to wait for the most powerful warriors to make it to the next level. Then, he would have a glimmer of hope. Boom! All of a sudden, there came a noise of explosion from one of the arenas on the left. Luli took a look and was shocked. Guan Qinxiu was badly injured. Guan Qinxiu's face was ashen, filled with unwillingness and resentment. He had used up an imperial armament to enter the finals with great difficulty. He had already won 4 matches. Yet, he had never thought that he would fail at the last moment. This sort of feeling was extremely painful. He had gone from heaven to hell and then back to heaven, only to end up in the 18th level of hell. Most people would have lost their minds. Hu Shiming, make it to the next level. Patriarch Gu's voice was heard while everyone was still immersed in Guan Qinqiu's defeat. Everyone looked over and saw a bloody hole in Hu Shiming's opponent's chest. Hu Shiming was so strong. His opponent was a famous soul warrior. Good. Lu Li was delighted, not because Hu Shiming had made it to the next level, but because Hu Shiming had severely injured a powerful opponent. This person was a powerful soul warrior. Lu Li was afraid of him. Now that this person was badly injured, he wouldn't be able to fight anytime soon. Even if he could, his abilities would be compromised. Wang Ningxue and Hu Shiming had made it to the next level. Guan Qinqiu was badly injured, and so was another powerful soul warrior. Lu Li was relieved to have 4 less powerful competitors. Some of the others were also nervous, excited, and worried. Even though there were fewer powerful warriors, there were fewer spots. The fights were getting more and more intense. Lu Li didn't move, waiting for a chance. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, another person made it to the next level. This person was also one of the 22. He was strong, and he was in Guan Qinqiu's team. Time went on. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, the 4th person made it to the next level. He was also one of the 22. These 22 people were indeed very strong. The crowd's eyes lit up. Gold would eventually shine. It's about time, Lu Li thought to himself. After 2 more people made it to the next level, it would be time for him to go up. Guan Qinqiu and the other powerful soul warrior were both healing. If this dragged on for too long, and the 2 of them recovered their vitality, it would be even more troublesome. Boom! After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, the 5th person made it to the next level. The other powerful warrior was badly injured as well. That meant there were 2 less powerful warriors. This was a great opportunity. Whoosh! After that man left, Lu Li dashed in like a sharp sword and shouted, "Guys, this way, please." Many people wanted to rush up, but when they saw Lu Li rush up, they stopped in their tracks. Many people at the peak of the 4th tribulation looked down on him. Now, they saw him as one of their most powerful opponents. One person flew up after some thoughts. He was at the peak of the 5th tribulation and one of the 22. He had never fought against Lu Li before, so he was not convinced. Lu Li released dragon wrestling and heaven armor at once. A long sword appeared in his hand, and a horn appeared in his other hand. He poured divine energy into the sword. At once, the sword glowed with divine energy and was filled with awe-inspiring might. This was not an average sword. It was Guan Qinqiu's sovereign weapon. As soon as the sovereign weapon was taken out, the person opposite Lu Li pulled a long face. Not everyone could have a sovereign weapon. It could enhance a warrior's abilities. He did not have an imperial armament. Thus, he would be at a disadvantage if the battle started. Lu Li dashed over. He swung the sovereign weapon in his hand forward. A ray of golden light whooshed out. The light filled the sky. At that moment, everyone was blinded. Woo-woo. Almost at the same time, Lu Li blew the horn. Many powerful souls began to attack that person. You are good. That person stepped back quickly. When he was about to fight back, a ray of 7-colored light came from the sky. A strong suction force came. That person was taken aback. His soul was under attack. He was flustered and at a loss. Now, the 7-colored glazed pagoda was attacking him. How could he stand it? Buzzing. He was sucked in. He was stopped as soon as he came up. How? Chapter 2682. 5 had made it to the next round. Guan Qinqiu and some other powerful warriors were seriously injured. There were 4 more powerful warriors on the other 4 arenas as well. Therefore, there weren't many powerful warriors left. As soon as Lu Li stepped onto the stage, someone was about to win 5 in a row. Therefore, they were more anxious, which gave Lu Li a chance. As soon as Lu Li got on the stage, he put on a show of strength. He used all kinds of means. Naturally, he was trying to deter the powerful warriors from provoking him. That warrior had been trapped in the 7-colored glazed pagoda. If Lu Li didn't let him out, he would stay there. What if Lu Li waited until the end of the recruitment ceremony? That warrior would lose his chance and lose the chance to become a registered disciple. Lu Li's move was cruel. For a moment, Nobody dared to step onto the stage. Those who were injured could admit defeat and go on after a while. But those who were trapped in the seven-colored glazed pagoda might never be able to participate again. Luli was getting impatient. He was going to win 5 in a row. How could he do that without others? He looked at the warriors closest to him and tried to goad them into action. He gave them a thumbs up and then slowly pressed down, implying that they were not good enough. One of them couldn't stand it anymore. He flew over. This time, Luli didn't use all his means. He only used the sovereign weapon. Luli didn't know how to use the sovereign weapon well. Every time, he could only release one ray of light. It was so bright that others couldn't even open their eyes. The warrior was not that strong. Luli took out his soft sword and hurt him with soul attacks. But he didn't injure the warrior seriously. Instead, he stepped back immediately. That warrior knew very well that Luli had gone easy on him. He gave up. He admitted defeat and was teleported out. 2 in a row. Luli was excited. There weren't many powerful warriors on the stage. He was hopeful that he could win 5 in a row. By then, he could become a disciple of the Heaven Emperor's sect. There would be hope to save Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong. Whoosh! Another warrior came up. He was at the peak of the 5th tribulation stage. But Luli didn't see him use his real move. Luli could not afford to be careless. He kept hacking with his sword. The shield was glaring. At the same time, Luli took out his horn and blew it. Woo-woo! That man seemed to be in pain. He held his head and rolled on the ground. Luli was overjoyed. While he kept playing, he rushed over like a ghost, tried to injure the man so that he would admit defeat. His speed was very fast. In a breath's time, he arrived near this person. He brandished his monarch weapon and ruthlessly stabbed towards this person's chest. Emperor weapons were extremely sharp. Ordinary armor would definitely not be able to block it. As long as the sword pierced through it, this person would definitely be heavily injured. No, right at that moment, Luli noticed that the man suddenly opened his eyes. There was no sign of pain, only mockery. Li's heart sank. He had been fooled. The enemy definitely hadn't lured him here to chat, so Luli wanted to retreat as soon as possible. However, he discovered that the ground suddenly lit up. Then, the ground he was standing on turned into a quagmire. There was also a huge suction force coming from below, sucking his body down. Divine Inscription's dojo. Once again, Luli was taken aback. He struggled, trying to fly up and get rid of the mire. However, the suction force below was too strong, and at this moment he felt that his divine power was in chaos. The more he struggled, the deeper he sank. Blood Fairy. Luli let Blood Fairy out at once. At the same time, he kept slashing with his sword and generated 11 abominable talismans, which he threw at that person. That person wanted to attack Luli at once, but he did not expect Luli to fight back so fiercely. The 12 abominable talismans kept coming, which forced the person back. Even though the person was not seriously injured, he would be seriously injured if several abominable talismans were to explode at the same time. Buzzing, Luli took out the 7-colored glazed pagoda, which flew up quickly. A door opened down there. That person was prepared. As soon as Luli took out the abominable talismans, the person retreated at once. He was not sucked in. Formation of heavenly water. That person released a strong fundamental principle. Heavy rain poured down, but the rain only covered an area with a radius of 1,000 feet where Luli was. It did not seem to be rain. It was more like sharp swords. The rain was also targeting Luli. Half of Luli's body was hit by the rain. Bang, 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 bang. Luli felt like half of his body was being pricked by needles. He was in so much pain that he clenched his teeth. The warrior on the other side was secretly shocked. Usually, he could kill a large number of warriors with such a powerful, fundamental meaning. How could he not be able to break Li's defense? Gathering of heavenly water. The rainwater suddenly gathered together in midair and hovered around like a huge dragon. After tens of thousands of drops of water were melted together, the huge dragon roared and turned into a huge sword with a length of more than 1,000 feet. The sword stabbed at Luli. **T. A true cultivator did not show his true colors. If the sword were to reach him, he would be seriously injured even if he could survive. What did he do then? Luli put the seven-colored glazed pagoda on top of his head. At the same time, he released 11 abominable talismans and hacked at the sword. Boom, 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 boom. The abominable talismans exploded in midair, but the water sword did not collapse. That being said, it was weaker. When the streams of light collided with the water swords, their auras became even weaker. Boom! In the end, the huge water sword landed on the seven-colored glazed pagoda. The seven-colored glazed pagoda trembled, but nothing happened. The water sword was shattered. The water sword came down with strong energy. Even though the pagoda had collapsed, the energy seemed to have made Luli spit out blood. Whoosh! Another huge sword came down from midair. Luli released the abominable talismans and used his sovereign weapon to block it. Still, the outcome was the same. The abominable talismans and rays of sword light offset some of the energy of the water sword. In the end, the water sword exploded on the seven-colored glazed pagoda. Poof! Luli exhaled again. It seemed that he was injured. The man in the distance laughed out loud and said, "Luli, just give up. Don't hold on anymore. Once you are badly injured, you will not have another chance." Give up? Luli was unwilling to give up. He shouted, "It is not in me to give up. I would rather die than do that." "Then I will grant you your wish." The middle-aged man was enraged as well. He made more water swords and stabbed at Luli. Luli could not move. He had to use the abominable talismans and sovereign weapon to weaken the water swords. In the end, he relied on the seven-colored glazed pagoda. Poof! An hour later, all of Luli's internal organs were shattered. This could not be deceived. The warrior on the other side could sense it. He put on a mocking smile and said, "Luli, I will ask you for the last time. Do you admit defeat or not? If you don't, then I will be serious. Don't blame me if you die." Ha ha ha. Chapter 2683. Luli had injured himself on purpose. He wanted to distract the warrior and stall for time so that he could crack the rune under his feet. There was no doubt that Blood Fairy was good at deciphering runes. She did it easily. She even built another rune under the warrior's feet. Buzzing, a ray of light rose from the warrior's feet. Following that, many streaks of red flames intertwined together and formed a cage that trapped the warrior. Ow! That warrior did not expect that Luli would pay him back in his own coin. The warrior generated dragons of water, trying to break the cage of flames. However, those chains of flames were illusions. The warrior's dragons of water whooshed out, and the shield was not damaged at all. Whoosh! The warrior dashed out. However, as soon as he approached the red lines, he sensed a fatal danger from the depth of his soul. It was a strong feeling. He had been on the verge of death many times. Therefore, his senses would not be wrong. Whoosh! Luli dashed over. He did not attack. Instead, he released the seven-colored glazed pagoda. The pagoda floated above the warrior, and a strong suction force came out. Oh no! The middle-aged warrior was taken aback. He tried his best to stand the suction force of the seven-colored glazed pagoda. However, the seven-colored glazed pagoda was spinning fast, and the suction force was growing stronger. After a while, the warrior felt he could not stand it any longer. He made a quick decision and shouted, "I admit defeat." Buzzing, the rune glowed. The warrior was teleported out of the arena. Luli put away the seven-colored glazed pagoda, and that plaza disappeared as well. 3 wins in a row. Luli took some healing pellets. He took a few breaths with fear lingering in his heart. At the same time, he used divine energy to heal himself. Those who could make it to the top 30 out of 5,000 must have been lucky. That being said, none of them could be underestimated. Just now, that warrior had built a plaza of rune quietly. If it were not for the fact that Blood Fairy was fast enough, that warrior would have been defeated. Outside the arena, people were in an uproar. How could Luli solve the rune so easily? He had built a rune. He could build runes, and he had the seven-colored glazed pagoda. Who could be his match? The other dueling arenas had been fighting for so long, but there was still no 6th person to advance to the next round. One person who had won 4 matches in a row had been defeated. Nobody from Lu Li's side came up. Average warriors wouldn't send themselves to death. The other powerful warriors were scared. The seven-colored glazed pagoda was too strong. If he was sucked in and suppressed, he would be in big trouble. "Let me do it." A man with a dark face walked out and slowly walked toward Lu Li. Lu Li looked at him and felt his heart was weighed down as well. He had observed this person's battles before. His defense, speed, and attack were all very balanced. He did not have any obvious weaknesses. He also had a few very powerful killing moves. He was a formidable opponent. As a matter of fact, Lu Li knew that it was difficult to make it to the next round easily. The more wins he had, the more powerful warriors would become restless. Every time he made it to the next round, there would be one less chance. He even knew this person's name. His surname was Meng, and his name was In. He was also a descendant of a large clan, and he was rather low-key. He was a bit less famous than Guan Qianxiu and the others, but his strength was not lacking. Young Lord Lu. The moment Meng went up, he clasped his hands and said, "You're already injured. Better not get into a fight, right? If you take the initiative, I, Meng, will owe you a favor. How about it?" Ha. Lu Li grinned. This Meng was dreaming. Did he think he could make Lu Li admit defeat without any bloodshed? Lu Li was glad that Meng was not in a hurry. This way, Lu Li could have more time to recover. He said with a smile, "Young Lord Meng, this is not right. I have won 3 times in a row, and you want me to admit defeat? How about you do it, and I will owe you a favor." "I cannot do that." Meng shook his head. "If you make it to the next round, what should we do? If you don't agree, then we will have to fight. Be careful." Meng dashed over. Lu Li stepped back quickly and went to where that warrior was. Lu Li set up a divine rune there. If Meng came close, Lu Li could tell Blood Fairy to imprison him. Hoi! Meng did not come over. He took out a piece of artifact, a tripod. The tripod flew up, grew larger, and flew toward Lu Li's head. Lu Li was taken aback. He had seen this tripod before. It was a piece of artifact that could emit powerful flames. In the past, a warrior at the peak of the 5th tribulation stage was badly injured by the tripod. Lu Li took out the 7-colored glazed pagoda and flew up as well. Instead of flying toward the tripod, the pagoda hovered around it. Buzzing, the tripod began to glow brightly. Following that, streams of dark air flowed down. Following that, blue flames burst out from the tripod. The temperature was scorching. The flames. Lu Li's eyelids twitched. The flames were even stronger than those he had encountered before. He should be able to stand it. However, if he were to be burned, he would be even more injured. How could he fight the next round? Buzzing, Lu Li spun the 7-colored glazed pagoda at once. The gate opened. A strong suction force came out and sucked in the flames. The flames were strong. There was another person in the 7-colored glazed pagoda. As soon as the flames entered, that person was badly injured. He might be burned to death. "Come out." Lu Li did not have the courage to kill. He sent the warrior out at once. As soon as the warrior came out, he shouted, "I give up. I give up." When the warrior was teleported out, Meng's expression turned somewhat unnatural. The flames released by his cauldron were not endless. The flames were not generated by the tripod itself. Meng had absorbed the flames from a secret realm. The tripod was only there to store the flames. Meng had released so many flames, but they were all absorbed by Lu Li's 7-colored glazed pagoda. The pagoda could absorb so many flames without any problem. It meant that even if Meng were to release all the flames, he could not hurt Lu Li one bit. Cosmic Fist. Meng waved his fists and punched at the void. Every time he punched, a ball of light would fly out. The balls were growing bigger and spinning fast. They were coming at Lu Li. Untruthful talisman. Lu Li released 11 talismans. As the talismans and the balls of light bumped into each other, there was a violent explosion. Space was torn apart and the shield was trembling. Blood Fairy, go and set up the runes. Lu Li told Blood Fairy to fly over from underground. He wanted to set up a rune to imprison Meng. However, Meng was too alert. Before Blood Fairy could come, he had already moved away. Blood Fairy did not have the chance to set up the rune. Meteorite. Mengen used another move, the one that made him famous. Meteorites fell from the sky, covering an area with a radius of 2 miles around Luli. Chapter 2684. Boom, boom, boom. Meteorites kept falling. Luli tried to break free several times. However, no matter where he went, the meteorites would follow him, and they would be fast. Luli was hit several times. He was not seriously injured, but he would be hurt if the attacks continued. By then, there would be no chance for him to turn the tables. Therefore, Luli attacked desperately, smashing the meteorites one by one. At the same time, he was trying to figure out a way out. Blood Fairy had been looking for a chance to lay down the runes. Unfortunately, Mengen was too alert. He kept moving, not giving Blood Fairy any chance. Luli tried to get close as well, but Mengen did not give Luli the chance. He kept a distance of 2 miles from Luli, not giving Luli any chance. Luli took out the horn and blew it. However, the distance was too far, which weakened the effect. Mengen's soul was strong. He was not affected. At least, his movements were not affected. His facial expressions did not change either. Luli tried to fly the 7-colored glazed pagoda over, but Mengen was fast and could dodge. Also, Mengen would use the tripod to smash at the 7-colored glazed pagoda. Luli was busy with the meteorites and could not concentrate on the 7-colored glazed pagoda. Mengen could not inflict any harm on Meng and must have done some research on Luli. His tactics were on point. Mengen's skills were impressive as well. Luli would be exhausted and Mengen would wear him out. What to do? Luli was losing patience. He had won 3 rounds in a row. Was he going to stop here? Another person had made it to the next round. 6 had made it to the next round. Now, only 4 were left. If Luli failed this time, the chances of him making it to the next round would be slim. Luli wanted to risk his life, but Mengen would not give him the chance. Meteorites kept falling from above. Mengen kept a distance from Luli, which gave Luli no chance to get close. Blood Fairy, come back. Luli called Blood Fairy back. Then, the separation bead glowed. The daughter of the Holy King came out. Luli's attacks became sharper as well. He smashed the meteorites. The daughter of the Holy King dashed toward Mengen. As soon as the daughter of the Holy King came out, people were in an uproar. Luli had help. The daughter of the Holy King was no different from an average person. More importantly, she was still alive. She looked just like a living person. Was Luli challenging the rules? However, when everyone looked at the heavenly immortal peak and saw that the 5 great emperors didn't say anything, they felt relieved. With the 5 emperors here, it was impossible for anyone to cheat. Therefore, the person Luli let out could not be a living person. It must be a living dead, a puppet. The daughter of the Holy King was fast. She dashed over at once. But Mengen was not alarmed at all. The daughter of the Holy King was strange, but she did not have a strong chi and energy. She must be a low-level puppet sent by Luli to distract him. Xiao, the Sacred Emperor's daughter, rushed into the sky, and Mengen punched down with one hand. He released the Heavenly Star Fist, and balls of light smashed down, hitting the Sacred Emperor's daughter. Boom! The Sacred Emperor's daughter was easily blasted down. Although she was not injured, the fact that she was sent flying so easily meant that the Sacred Emperor's daughter was not strong enough. Boom, boom, boom. Saint King's daughter charged forward again and again, only to be smashed down again and again. On the other hand, Luli was still being attacked by meteorites. Every time, there would be more than 100 meteorites smashing down. Luli tried his best to use Honesty Talisman and Sword Rays to smash the meteorites. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The Sacred Emperor's daughter dashed forward and was smashed down again and again. After dozens of times, the Sacred Emperor's daughter suddenly sped up. She had been going straight before, but this time, she had learned to take a detour. Mengen had just released the Heavenly Star Fist and generated several balls of light. He did not expect that the Sacred Emperor's daughter would learn to take a detour. Could a low-level puppet be so nimble? Buzzing, all of a sudden, the Sacred Emperor's daughter's chi and energy grew stronger. Even people outside could sense it. It was as if an ancient beast had woken up. Meng was taken aback. Out of instinct, he felt he had fallen into a trap. This was not a puppet, but a real person. Luli had cheated. How could a puppet be so agile? How could a puppet hide its abilities? Without any hesitation, Meng stepped back out of instinct. No matter what, stepping back was always the right thing to do. The sacred emperor's daughter's energy was increasing. Meng was afraid that he had fallen into a trap. As Meng stepped back, the meteorite from outer space stopped. Luli dashed forward at the top of his speed and cut off Meng's path of retreat. At the same time, the sacred emperor's daughter caught up with Luli and attacked Meng, and for both sides. Meng did not panic. He controlled the tripod to float above his head. At the same time, he released the heavenly star fist. Instead of attacking the sacred emperor's daughter, he chose to target Luli. He released another treasure, which was a black wooden fish. He threw it at the sacred emperor's daughter, and the wooden fish turned into a huge beast in midair. It was a toad-like monster, and it opened its mouth and swallowed the sacred emperor's daughter. Roar! Luli bellowed. He sent the sacred emperor's daughter out for a chance to get close. How could he let go of such a rare opportunity? Luli swung his sword and used the honest heavenly talisman as well. There were violent explosions in front of him. Luli should have stepped back under such circumstances. However, he dashed to the side. The horrifying shockwave swept across. Luli was swept into the shockwave. His skin was wounded. Blood dyed the sky red. Luli was covered in blood as he dashed toward Meng, and Luli blew the horn. At the same time, he was moving closer to Meng, ready for close combat. A deep bugle sounded. Meng sneered. Luli's soul attack did not mean much to him. Close combat? Meng was not afraid. His physical body was not weak. Luli's heart was weighed down by the sneer in Meng's eyes. It would be hard for him to win this time. Madness rose in Meng's eyes. All of a sudden, the seven-colored glazed pagoda above his head began to spin. Flames poured down like rain. Meng and Luli were both on the ground. Lunatic, Meng was taken aback. He knew very well how powerful the flames were. If he didn't run away, he would be burned alive. Meng was about to fly away when Luli dashed over. Luli reached out his hands and feet and entangled Meng like an octopus. The flames swept down. Both Luli and Meng were enveloped by the flames. Meng let out a miserable cry. Luli groaned in pain as well. The flames were even more horrifying than the white flames at the blazing island. Luli could not stand it any longer. He was on fire. I give up. I give up, Meng shouted in anger and reluctance. He didn't want to give up, but he knew that if he didn't, he would die. Chapter 2685. So cruel, killing 3,000 enemies at the cost of 800. This guy is so cruel that he even burns himself. Ha ha ha. He has won 4 in a row, but look at how badly he is burned. Can he still fight? If he didn't hurt himself, he wouldn't have won 4 in a row. But this guy is cruel. He is cruel to his enemies and cruel to himself. Win 1 more. I bet on him to get a top 10. I will be rich if he can. What are you talking about? How could he win like this? Any one of you would be able to suppress him. Luli had won 4 in a row. The crowd was in an uproar. Many bet that Luli would not make it a top 10, while others bet that he would. What was more, he was the biggest dark horse in this year's recruitment ceremony. Naturally, people were paying more attention to him. Not only the onlookers, but many people on the Peak of Fairy were discussing as well, including the disciples of the Heaven Emperor sect and the several Martial Emperors. Martial Emperor had always found Luli an eyesore. Looking at Luli's miserable state, he turned to a Emperor and said, Rue Emperor, I think this is the end of the road for the kid you are optimistic about. He is so badly injured. Anyone could defeat him. Ha ha. Rue Emperor smiled, but said nothing. He looked at Luli, who was burnt, and looked at Luli's eagle-like eyes. It was as if he was looking at himself when he was younger. It was so difficult for disciples of poor families to stand out. Others had backgrounds, resources, talents, and treasures. But they had nothing. They could not rely on anyone. They had to fight their way up step by step. Most of them died prematurely. Only a few were lucky enough to stand at the top of the pyramid. When they stood at the top of the pyramid, they realized that all the people around them were disciples from wealthy families. Even if they stood at the top, they would still be pushed aside and suppressed by a group of people because they were not the same kind of people as disciples from wealthy families. Without a doubt, the Rui Emperor was this kind of person. Even though he had become a great emperor and became a top-notch figure in the endless divine ruins, he wasn't considered much in the Celestial Emperor's sect. Many people didn't like him and were working together to suppress him. That was why Rui Emperor found Lu Li pleasing to the eye. He saw himself in Lu Li. Hiss. Lu Li rolled around on the ground and struggled to sit up. He took 2 healing pellets at once and took out 2 more elixirs to consume. He had suffered internal injuries before, and this was equivalent to an external injury, a very serious one at that. The flames were too terrifying. Even he couldn't withstand it. If Meng continued to fight to the death and refused to admit defeat, after Meng was burned to death, Jiang, he might be burned to death as well. Even though he had won 4 times in a row, Lu Li was not secretly delighted. He didn't want to think about anything else. Healing his wounds was the priority. His recovery ability was stronger than the average person's. As long as he was given half an incense stick's time, his injuries would probably recover by a lot. The people below were naturally not stupid. How could they give him time to recover? Now, 6 had made it to the next round, and only 4 were left. If Lu Li were to make it to the next round, then the chances would be even slimmer. Take advantage of his weakness and kill him. They would not miss such a good chance. As soon as Lu Li consumed the 2 miraculous herbs, 4 or 5 warriors came to him. Xiao, a figure was even faster than them. He roared, "Everyone, give me a chance to avenge my humiliation." They checked with psychic power and found it was Guan Qianxiu. Guan Qianxiu had been healing for some time. He had recovered a bit, but he was not fully recovered yet. Guan Qianxiu was famous. 3 of them stopped when they saw him. The other 2 didn't trust Guan Qianxiu. One of them asked, "Brother Guan, can you do it now?" Guan Qianxiu had not recovered yet. This person was afraid that Guan Qianxiu could not defeat Lu Li and that Lu Li would make it to the next round. What was more, Guan Qianxiu was suppressed by Lu Li's 7-color glaze before. What if he was suppressed again? "Brother Ning, trust me." Guan Qianxiu nodded seriously. This young Master Ning stopped after some thoughts, giving Guan Qianxiu face. But the other person didn't. Instead, he sneered and said, "Young Master Guan, you should continue to heal. You don't have to do anything in this fight. Don't worry. I don't think I will cooperate with him. I'm going easy on him." This person's meaning was clear. Guan Qianxiu and Lu Li had worked together before, so he didn't trust Guan Qianxiu. If Guan Qianxiu was going easy on Lu Li, then they would have 1 less spot. "Ha ha ha ha." Guan Qianxiu laughed and said, "Brother Lu, don't worry. I swear on the reputation of the Guan family that I will try my best this time. Please, Brother Lu, do me a favor." Since Guan Qianxiu had said so, the other person didn't want to turn Guan Qianxiu down. What was more, Guan Qianxiu's wounds were not fully recovered. Even if he could defeat Lu Li and win the next round, it would be more difficult. This was a chance for the other person. In the end, Guan Qianxiu rushed into the arena. The healing pellets Lu Li took and the elixirs he consumed had just spread throughout his body. His skin had stopped bleeding, but his wounds were not healed. Lu Li opened his eyes and looked at Guan Qianxiu, standing opposite him. Lu Li put on a mocking smile. Before the finals, Guan Qianxiu had just invited Lu Li to a banquet and called him brother. Now, Guan Qianxiu wanted to deal with Lu Li. Guan Qianxiu didn't seem to be embarrassed at all. He cupped his fists and said, "Brother Lu, just admit defeat. You are too badly wounded. You're no match for me." Lu Li smiled and replied, "Brother Guan, you are not fully recovered yet. If we fight, both of us will suffer. By then, you won't be able to make it to the next round. How about we make a deal? I will give the sovereign weapon back to you, and you will help me make it to the next round?" Guan Qianxiu sneered. He shook his head and said, "Brother Lu, you are overthinking. For me, being a disciple of the Celestial Emperor sect is more important. I don't care about the sovereign weapon. If I help you make it to the next round, how can I, Guan Qianxiu, establish myself in the endless ruins? Don't bring this up again. You are wrong. Lu Li wanted to buy some time to recover. Therefore, he said to Guan Qinxiu patiently, Brother Guan, think about it this way. If I make it to the next round, there will be 3 places left. After you get the sovereign weapon, your abilities will be greatly improved. There are not many powerful warriors left. You have a better chance. Guan Qinxiu shook his head and said, Brother Lu, say no more. I will ask you one last time. Do you admit defeat? If not, I will make my move. How could Lu Li admit defeat? It was not easy for him to achieve 4 victories in a row. The dawn of victory was near. He would not admit defeat, even if he had to die. Making up his mind, Lu Li stood up and said, Come on. Even if I have to die, I want to know why. Chapter 2686. Guan Qinxiu had fought with Lu Li before, and he saw it. In that fight, Lu Li used almost all his trump cards. Guan Qinxiu was not fully recovered yet, but he was confident. Guan Qinxiu was well aware of Lu Li's fatal weakness, which was that Lu Li was not good at long-range attacks. Apart from the 7-colored glazed pagoda, Lu Li's other attacks were not threatening. The pagoda could not fly too far away because Lu Li could not control it well. As long as Guan Qinxiu was careful and did not let the 7-colored glazed pagoda get close, Lu Li would be safe. Lu Li was injured, both internally and externally. Guan Qinxiu could injure Lu Li badly if he attacked from a distance. By then, Lu Li would have to admit defeat. Guan Qinxiu did the same thing. He took out a sword and released wind-related fundamental principle. The wind in the air gathered toward him. Many beasts came out. Those beasts seemed to have physical bodies and were horrifying. The beasts roared and dashed toward Lu Li. This is bad. No wonder Guan Qinxiu was one of the most powerful warriors here. He was experienced as well. Lu Li was troubled when he saw Guan Qinxiu using beasts to attack from a distance. Lu Li told Blood Fairy to go underground as well. He wanted to set up a rune there to trap Guan Qinxiu. At the same time, Lu Li flew the 7-colored glazed pagoda over, trying to approach Guan Qinxiu. As long as Guan Qinxiu was close enough, Lu Li could win by sucking him in or releasing flames. Guan Qinxiu had suffered once. He would not repeat the same mistake. Guan Qinxiu moved around like a breeze. He had already sensed Blood Fairy. Psychic power was not restricted here. Therefore, Blood Fairy's every move could be detected. Boom, boom, boom. On the other side, Lu Li used the Honesty Talisman and Sword Rays to crush the beasts made of wind. Every time he used the Honesty Talisman, he would grimace in pain. He was wounded. To attack, he must mobilize divine energy and move his body. Naturally, his wounds would be aggravated. Boom, boom, boom. Because of his wounds, Lu Li's reaction was slowed down. What was more, Guan Qinxiu was so fast that Lu Li could not fight back. Many beasts exploded near Lu Li, which created a strong shockwave that worsened Lu Li's injuries. Although his corporeal body's self-healing ability was very strong, and he had also refined the godly medicine, his injuries still needed a process and time to recover. Now, Guan Qinxiu did not give Lu Li the time to do so. The result would be Lu Li's injuries getting worse and worse. Guan Qinxiu's strategy was perfect. He did not use any other attacks. He just moved around Lu Li, dodging the 7-colored glazed pagoda and Blood Fairy while releasing beasts of wind. He didn't even need the beasts to hit Lu Li. He just needed them to explode around Lu Li, and the shockwaves in space would aggravate Lu Li's injuries. When Lu Li was so badly injured that he couldn't even lift his hands, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Meng Yan's failure made Guan Qinxiu even more vigilant. He was on high alert. Nothing Lu Li did could escape his detection. As long as he did not give the 7-colored glazed pagoda a chance to get close to Lu Li, he would win for sure. Guan Qinxiu came to the stage for 2 reasons. For one, he wanted to take advantage of Lu Li. Defeating Lu Li would not cost him too much energy. Defeating Lu Li would be a victory for him. For another reason, he wanted to see if he could get the Imperial weapon back. For another, he wanted to avenge his humiliation. Being defeated by Lu Li had ruined his reputation. Guan Xinqiu wanted to reclaim his glory and wash away the humiliation. Therefore, he was very careful in this fight. He could not afford to lose. Lu Li was anxious and helpless. He tried many ways. He sent out the Saint King's daughter to try to get close to Guan Xinqiu. He also asked Blood Fairy to build some runes. Unfortunately, the space was too large for the runes to work. Guan Xinqiu was too cautious to give Lu Li any chance. Lu Li's injuries were getting worse. He spat out more blood. His eyes dimmed down, and he was trembling. But he did not give up. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, Lu Li was badly injured. If he went on, he would be killed by the shockwaves. Sighing, Lu Li said to the Blood Emperor, "Master, I have no other way. Please help me. I must go to the Heaven Emperor's sect." Asking for help from the Blood Emperor was the last resort. Lu Li would not ask for help unless he had no other choice. He was at his wit's end. He had to put aside his pride and ask for help. This was his last chance. "I cannot help you." The Blood Emperor's reply made Lu Li lose all hope. The Blood Emperor explained, "There are 5 great Emperor Realm warriors up there. As soon as I make a move, they will notice. At the very least, you have violated the rules and will be judged as cheating. You will be disqualified." Lu Li's heart was weighed down. He knew that the Blood Emperor was not making excuses. The 5 great Emperor Realm warriors had been paying attention to the battlefields. Nothing could escape their detection. Once the Blood Emperor made a move, how could such a powerful remnant soul escape their detection? Lu Li did not know if using the remnant soul to help was cheating or not. That being said, it was not his power. There were so many young masters. Which one of them didn't have remnant soul of a progenitor warrior? If it was not cheating, then everyone could use the remnant soul of a progenitor warrior. Never mind, never mind. Lu Li exhaled. He had tried his best. If he failed, then it was his fate. It was not that he didn't want to risk his life, but he didn't have a chance. At this moment, he was relieved. He was ready to throw in the towel after a while. Many ideas flashed across his mind. He was analyzing his various skills and killing moves, trying to see if there was anything he could use to break the deadlock. Alas, if I can master that soul skill, I might have a chance. Lu Li felt sorry. He had been trying to learn a soul skill, but he had been stuck at a bottleneck and could not make any progress. According to the description, the soul skill was a powerful one. It could condense soul energy into a gust of wind, which could attack enemies' souls from more than 300 miles away. It could kill people invisibly, and the attack was powerful. When, right at that moment, Lu Li was surprised. He was surrounded by beasts. Were they all made of wind energy? Looking at the beasts around him, Lu Li's soul was trembling. He had a vague feeling that he was about to pierce through the thin window paper and see the view outside. At this moment, he had an epiphany. The thing was, there were beasts all around him. How could he have the time to have an epiphany? While he was in a trance, he stopped releasing sword light and on his talisman to attack the beasts. Boom, boom, boom. 3 beasts whooshed over and hit Lu Li. He was smashed away, and one of his hands was broken. Lu Li rolled around on the ground. His eyes were closed as if he had passed out. Teleport him out. He has passed out. He is lost. Chapter 26:87. Lu Li did have an epiphany. At this moment, he forced himself to forget everything. He would accept it even if he were to be killed. He tried his best to pierce through the paper window so that he could see the scenery outside. Then, he would be able to master the soul secret technique. A moment of enlightenment was better than 10,000 years of cultivation. The opportunity to gain enlightenment was too rare. An hour of enlightenment was equivalent to 100 years of cultivation. Therefore, Lu Li did not care about anything else. As long as he could succeed in the epiphany, he could still have a chance to turn the tables, even if he was badly injured. Of course, if Guan Xinqiu hardened his heart, he might just be killed. Guan Xinqiu did not kill Lu Li. When Lu Li fainted, Guan Xinqiu dashed toward Lu Li and stared at the sovereign weapon in Lu Li's hand. This was the treasure of his clan's true clan. Although he had the intention of forcefully snatching it, and it would be bad for his reputation, Guan Xinqiu couldn't care less about it. Xiao. He arrived at Lu Li's side easily and took the sovereign armament in his hand. He was relieved. The sovereign armament was back. Whether or not he could become a disciple of the Heaven Emperor sect, at the very least, he would not suffer a great loss. Soon, he realized something was wrong. Luli wasn't teleported out. Was Luli in a coma? According to the rules of the tournament, those who fainted would be sent out and eliminated. Luli wasn't teleported out. Did that mean he wasn't eliminated? An ominous glint flashed in his eyes. Luli was not teleported out in this state. Was he going to disable Luli? The rule was that killing was not allowed, but it didn't say that crippling was not allowed. Guan Qinqiu snorted. The sword in his hand glowed. With a ray of sword light, Guan Qinqiu stabbed at Lu Li's abdomen. He was going to destroy Lu Li's pellet. At the very least, Lu Li would be less of a threat. Besides, Lu Li would not have any chance to participate in the fight anymore. Bang! The ray of sword light landed on Lu Li's abdomen. With a muffled sound, the skin on Lu Li's abdomen exploded. However, the sword only pierced through the skin. It didn't go through his abdomen. Guan Qinqiu was enraged. He made several more moves, aiming at Lu Li's abdomen. The wound on Lu Li's abdomen was getting worse. If he were to stab a few more times, he would probably be able to pierce through it. At that time, the divine elixir would definitely explode. But at that moment, Guan Qinqiu stopped. He had attacked for so many times, but Lu Li didn't react. Guan Qinqiu suspected that Lu Li had passed out. If so, why didn't Lu Li teleport out? He was surprised and asked in a deep voice, "Patriarch Gu, I have a question. Why is Lu Li not eliminated directly?" Guan Qinqiu was not the only one confused. Those outside and many onlookers were confused as well. Lu Li was so badly injured and had fainted. Why didn't he teleport out? Did Guan Qinqiu have to kill Lu Li? Elder Gu's voice resounded in everyone's ears. Because he hasn't fainted and hasn't admitted defeat, according to the rules, I can't teleport him out. He's not unconscious? Everyone was confused, but Guan Qinqiu's eyes narrowed, and his body began to seethe with killing intent. After some thoughts, he rushed over like a gust of wind and stabbed at Lu Li's abdomen with his weapon. Whatever the case, it was the right thing to do to destroy Lu Li's pellet. At the very least, there wouldn't be any problems. Boom! Guan Qinqiu's move was full of strength, and he used the fundamental principle of gold, which was particularly brutal. Lu Li's abdomen was pierced through. Lu Li's eyes were still closed, even though his abdomen was pierced through. That being said, Lu Li's pellet was tough enough that it didn't break. Without any hesitation, Guan Qinqiu kept stabbing at Lu Li's pellet with his sword. Lu Li remained motionless like a dead man, allowing Guan Qinqiu to strike at his pellet. Someone outside felt sorry for Lu Li. How could he be so cruel when he was in such a state? Boom! Finally, Lu Li's pellet exploded. Guan Qinqiu was relieved. Seeing that Lu Li was not teleported out, Guan Qinqiu frowned. He was ready to cut off Lu Li's hands and feet. In this way, Lu Li would no longer be a threat. Right at that moment, Lu Li opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with coldness, like a beast choosing its prey. Guan Qinqiu's heart skipped a beat. Buzzing, almost at the same time, Lu Li's eyes glowed. Two streaks of green light shot into Guan Qinqiu's eyes. Guan Qinqiu was taken aback. He stepped back and at the same time checked his soul. His soul was not particularly strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been affected by the horn. This soul attack is strange. Soon, Guan Qinqiu realized something was wrong. The soul attack was like a viper piercing into his soul. His enchanted soul wanted to devour it, but the soul attack was as slippery as a loach. His enchanted soul could not catch up. Buzzing, green light kept coming out from Lu Li's eyes. After the third streak of light went into Guan Qinqiu's body, he stopped moving. 3 streaks of soul energy were attacking him. His enchanted soul could not stand it anymore. He had to try his best to protect his soul. Otherwise, his soul would collapse. Buzzing, Lu Li kept on releasing soul attacks. He was injured and his soul was weak. That being said, he could not worry about that. He would not let Guan Qinqiu feel better, even if he was defeated. Buzzing, seeing that Guan Qinqiu had stopped moving, Lu Li sent a message to Blood Fairy and told her to get the 7-colored glazed pagoda over. When the 7-colored glazed pagoda arrived, Lu Li yelled, "Guan Qinxiu, you are doomed." The door under the 7-colored glazed pagoda opened. Flames poured out and enveloped Guan Qinxiu. Guan Qinxiu's entire body was instantly set ablaze. Fortunately, he was wearing a powerful suit of armor. Otherwise, he would have been burnt to ashes. Guan Qinxiu woke up because of the pain. He realized he was on fire. He knew he was doomed. Even if he could kill Lu Li, he would be badly injured and he would never have a chance to level up. Guan Qinxiu's eyes glowed with ferocity. He had always hated Lu Li. He was about to be eliminated. How could he let Lu Li move on? Guan Qinxiu bellowed and dashed toward Lu Li. He was not far away from Lu Li. He reached Lu Li at once and swung his sword at Lu Li. Boom! Lu Li's injuries were so severe that he could not dodge even if he wanted to. He had to take the hit. This time, Guan Qinxiu did not use the same fundamental principle as before. Instead, the sword glowed in a yellowish color. It was heavy. Lu Li felt like a mountain had hit his head. Boom! Lu Li's injuries were so severe that he passed out. This time, Guan Qinxiu was teleported out. Seeing that Lu Li was teleported out, Guan Qinxiu grinned and shouted, "I give up as well." Buzzing. Chapter 2688. Lu Li was in a coma. As soon as he came out, he was taken away by the Celestial Emperor's sect for treatment. The 7-colored glazed pagoda and Blood Fairy were teleported out. Blood Fairy was smart. She took the 7-colored glazed pagoda and controlled the Holy King's daughter to stay close to Lu Li. Guan Qinxiu was sent out and was treated as well. The arena was empty, but nobody went in. They were all looking at Patriarch Gu. In addition to them, everyone was looking at Patriarch Gu, waiting for his judgment. Was Lu Li the winner? Patriarch Gu was struggling as well. After all, Lu Li and Guan Qinxiu were teleported out at almost the same time. Guan Qinxiu had admitted defeat. Who was the winner? If Lu Li had won, then Lu Li would make it to the next round. He turned to the 5 emperors. Emperor Hing thought about it and said, "How about we count Lu Li as the winner? After all, Guan Qinxiu has admitted defeat." Emperor Rui said at once, "I think so." Lu Li forced Guan Qinxiu to admit defeat with his own abilities. Even though he is in a coma, he has won. Emperor Hung and Emperor Rui found Lu Li pleasing to the eye, so they spoke up for him. Lu Li, at the peak of the 4th tribulation, could fight against the peak of the 5th tribulation. He was a promising seedling. With proper training, he might become a mainstay of the Celestial Emperor's sect. Sovereign Wu sneered and said, "Gentlemen, isn't it too obvious that you're taking sides?" Lu Li was teleported out after he passed out. Guan Qinxiu admitted defeat after he was sure that Lu Li was teleported out. According to the rules, the first one to be teleported out is the loser. Since Lu Li passed out first, he must be eliminated. There's no doubt about this. If you insist on siding with Lu Li, then I will have to ask the Patriarch to make a ruling. Emperor Rui and Emperor Hung were embarrassed by Emperor Wu's words. It was just a chance to make it to the next round. How could Emperor Wu go against the rules? They were all emperors. If Emperor Wu showed some respect to Emperor Wu, he would show some respect to Emperor Wu. They were all leaders of the Celestial Emperor sect, but Emperor Wu did not show them any respect. They knew that Emperor Wu was obsessed with cultivation. That being said, Emperor Wu did not have to go so far just because of Lu Li. As a matter of fact, it was not entirely because Lu Li was an eyesore to Emperor Wu. More importantly, it was because of Guan Qinxiu. The martial emperor had some connections with Guan Qinxiu's family. Although his wife's surname was not Guan, she was an adopted daughter of the Guan family. Strictly speaking, Guan Qinxiu was his junior, and some people from the Guan family had sought out the martial emperor to ask him to take care of him. Now, he couldn't take care of Guan Qinxiu anymore. It was destined that Guan Qinxiu wouldn't make it to the top 10, so he had to vent his anger on Lu Li. According to the rules, Lu Li was supposed to be eliminated, so it was understandable that he insisted on this. The other 2 great emperors didn't say anything. Their silence actually indicated that they agreed with the martial emperor's words. Emperor Hung thought about it and said, "All right, let's do as martial emperor said." Both of them are eliminated. The martial arts competition will continue. As soon as Patriarch Gu announced the decision, the rest of the contestants were relieved. If Lu Li could make it to the top 10, then there would be one less spot. Now that both Lu Li and Guan Xinqiu were seriously injured, there would be two less powerful competitors and one more spot to make it to the top 10. How could they not be happy? The people outside began to curse. Many people placed their bets on Guan Xinqiu, and many others placed their bets on Lu Li. Now that both of them had no hope of making it to the top 10, their divine stones were thrown into the water again. Of course, there were some who were happy. They could make a lot of divine stones by placing their bets on Lu Li not to make it to the top 10. As soon as Patriarch Gu announced the result, it was as good as announcing the death sentence for Lu Li and Guan Xinqiu. Once the decision was made, nobody could change it. Those who were hoping that Lu Li would be the dark horse and make it to the top 10 were disappointed. The dark horse had to stop at the top 10. The martial arts competition went on. Soon, one person made it to the top 10. Those who came later were lucky. With two less powerful competitors, some powerful warriors took advantage of the situation. Before Lu Li and Guan Xinqiu could come back to their senses, the 7th, 8th, and 9th warriors had all made it to the next level. 3 hours later, Guan Xinqiu finally woke up. He checked with psychic power at once. It just so happened that the 10th person made it to the top 10. The recruitment ceremony had come to an end. The recruitment ceremony is officially over. The list of the top 10 is out. They are Wang Ningxue, Hu Shiming. When Patriarch Gu finished reading the list, the 10 were overjoyed. Finally, they had become disciples of the Celestial Emperor sect. They had reached the top in one step. Joining the Celestial Emperor sect was equivalent to having a path to the heavens. As long as they worked hard, they would become powerful warriors for sure. They might even have the chance to become a supreme being that could look down upon the entire boundless ruins. After Patriarch Gu finished reading the names, he took out a booklet and said, "The 10 will become disciples of the Celestial Emperor's sect directly. Now, I will announce the list of registered disciples. There are 10 registered disciples with a 3-year trial period. If they perform well, it is not impossible for registered disciples to become official disciples. This time, the registered disciples are Guan Xinqiu, Lu Shanhe, Yang Wenle, Lu Li." Guan Xinqiu smiled a bitter smile when he heard the list. He was the number 1 among the registered disciples, but it was meaningless. Being a registered disciple was not meaningful in itself. Years had proven that being a registered disciple was just a consolation prize. After the 3-year trial period, if they were lucky, one of them could become an official disciple. If they were unlucky, then none of the 10 would stay. Guan Xinqiu himself was one of the best of the younger generation in the boundless ruins of gods. He thought he was the most powerful in this recruitment ceremony. How could he become a registered disciple? Those who he thought were weaker than him had become official disciples. How could he put his face to this? At this moment, Guan Xinqiu even wanted to give up. He wanted to go back to his clan and cultivate. Even if he didn't join the Celestial Emperor's sect, he could still make a name for himself and become one of the best in the boundless ruins of gods. No, Guan Xinqiu shook his head. He looked at Lu Li in a pavilion not far away. He changed his mind when he saw Lu Li. He had decided to join the Celestial Emperor's sect. He wanted to become a registered disciple for no other reason than to find a chance to kill Lu Li. If it were not for Lu Li, Guan Xinqiu wouldn't have gone through so many twists and turns in the semifinals. If he had a sovereign weapon, he would have passed directly. In the end, he was burned by Lu Li and lost all hope. This bastard that came out of nowhere had ruined his plans again and again. If he could not kill Lu Li, how could he let it go? Lu Li would definitely stay in the Celestial Emperor sect. If Guan Xinqiu refused to become a registered disciple, then it would be difficult to kill Lu Li. During the 3 years, they would have to go through many trials, and there would be chances to kill Lu Li. Chapter 2689. It was 3 days later when Luli woke up. He felt pain all over his body. One of his arms had not grown back, and his pellet was broken. First, he used psychic power to check. He found himself in a castle with the daughter of Saint King standing next to him. This place should be safe. Luli took some healing pellets and fell asleep. He slept for another 3 days. When he woke up, he felt much better. His arm had grown back and his wounds were healed. Of course, the pellet had not recovered yet. The pellet had to be made with super pellets. It could not grow back by itself. Luli was not in a hurry to make the pellet. Instead, he used psychic power to check the surroundings. He noticed 2 maids outside and transmitted his voice over. "Come in." A maid walked in. Luli asked, "Where are we?" "Young Master Lu, this is the ancient Jade Peak." The maid explained, "This is a peak in the Heaven Emperor universe. Patriarch Goose sent you here and asked us to take good care of you. She said that you can go to the Heaven Emperor Peak when you are healed." Heaven Emperor universe? Luli was surprised. Then he was delighted. "I have made it? I am an official disciple of the Heaven Emperor sect now?" "No." The maid was embarrassed. "Young Master, you have been accepted as a registered disciple." Registered disciple? Luli put on a bitter smile. He remembered that he was knocked out by Guan Chinchio. Usually, he would be teleported out and eliminated immediately after he passed out. In other words, he did not have 5 wins in a row, but only 4. It was understandable that he was accepted as a registered disciple instead of an official disciple. Registered disciple. This was a consolation prize which was not very meaningful. It would be lucky if 1 out of 10 registered disciples could become an official disciple. If they were unlucky, they could all be kicked out after 3 years. The Heaven Emperor sect was strict in accepting disciples. They would rather have nothing than have a shoddy quality. They would spend a huge amount of resources to train every official disciple. If nothing went wrong, they would become powerful warriors. At the very least, they could become emperor candidates. If they were lucky, they could even become emperor candidates. The Heaven Emperor sect would provide all their disciples with many resources which were not endless. Naturally, the Heaven Emperor sect would not waste resources on others. The nominal disciples were the losers and the products of elimination. No matter how strong you were or how talented you were, a loser would always be a loser. No one would care about a loser. The eyes of the big shots in the sect would always be on the official disciples. "You can leave first. I'll rest for a while." This thought surprised Luli. He had come all the way to the Heaven Emperor sect and worked so hard. He was so close to his goal. However, in the end, he failed on the verge of success. All he got was a consolation prize, staying in the Celestial Arch Peak for 3 years, witnessing the strength of a #1 sect in the Celestial Arch Peak, and then being sent away sourly. This was not the ending he wanted. "I was thinking too much." After a while, Luli put on a bitter smile. His own abilities were just SOSO. It was lucky that he could make it to the finals and almost make it to the top 10. If it was anyone else, they might not even be able to enter the semifinals. He should be content. Luli had some special means, but his realm was his shortcoming. His foundation was weak as well. When he was at a lower realm, these might not be a problem. That being said, in front of a truly powerful warrior, these problems could be fatal. Luli's mind wandered for a while. He consumed some herbs and fell asleep again. This time, he slept for 3 days. When he woke up, his wounds were almost healed. The only thing left was the pellet. Luli's pellet was destroyed once before. He had some experience in this. He rummaged through the herbs in his interspatial ring and found some that could help in the formation of pellets. He didn't go to the Celestial Arch Peak. He stayed in his room to cultivate. The priority was to repair the pellets and restore his abilities. Without divine energy, many skills could not be used. Not even sovereign weapons could be used. Since he had made pellets before, Luli was experienced. This time, the process was fast. In 7 or 8 days, Luli's pellet was made. The newly formed pellet contained no divine energy at all. All the divine energy that Luli had accumulated was gone. He stopped cultivating after 3 days of cultivation. "Please take me to the Celestial Arch Peak," Luli said to the maid. She shook her head and said, I am sorry, young master. The Celestial Arch Peak is not a place for servants like us. There is a teleportation formation here. Activate it, and you can go to the Celestial Arch Peak directly. Okay. Luli didn't have so many concerns. He strode toward the teleportation formation outside. It was a simple one. He activated it easily. After a flash of white light, Luli arrived at the foot of a huge mountain. He stood in a plaza. The plaza was not large. There was a statue of an old man in a straw cape with a fishing rod in his hand. The statue was vivid, like a real person. Luli looked toward the mountain. There were castles everywhere, but they were all small ones. They were scattered across the mountain like plum blossoms. The mountain was shrouded in mist. The Xianqi in heaven and earth was rich. Therefore, the flowers and trees here were luxuriant. It was like a fairyland. There was no army in the plaza, only a pavilion. In the pavilion sat an old man who was playing a game of chess. He didn't even notice Li's arrival. Luli dared not to be arrogant in a place like this. He walked over, bowed, and said, "Greetings, Lord." The old man looked up at Li, waved his hand, and said, "Go up the mountain. You can only take the small path. Don't look around, don't probe, and don't walk around. Otherwise, don't blame me if you die. Go to the middle of the mountain and find the biggest castle. Patriarch Gu is there. Also, don't call me Lord. Just call me Ghost." "Thank you, Lord Ghost." Luli cupped his fists again. He looked at the mountain and tried to identify the small path. He remembered Ghost's words clearly. There were at least hundreds of castles in the mountain. Powerful warriors of the Heaven Emperor sect must be living there. Luli was only a registered disciple. He wouldn't even know how he died if he acted rashly. Luli walked along the small path. He didn't dare to look around, walk around, or use psychic power. He walked toward the middle of the mountain step by step. After a while, he passed by dozens of castles. None of them dared to look around. After a turn, he saw a castle right in front of him. Out of instinct, he looked over and saw an old man sitting under a tree. The old man had red hair, bulging eyes, and a beard. Even though he didn't show any energy, Luli could tell that he was a powerful warrior. Martial Emperor. Luli knew this man. He didn't know that Martial Emperor was living here. When Luli looked over, Martial Emperor happened to raise his head and made eye contact with Luli. Luli's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling. "Punk, come here." Martial Emperor suddenly waved his hand. Luli had to force himself to walk over. When he arrived, Luli cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, Lord Martial Emperor. Are you healed? You have made the pellets. That is fast." Martial Emperor put on a smile, but it was ferocious and horrifying. He was like a strange uncle who saw a pretty girl. He said with a grin, "It just so happens that I need a servant. Go and tell Patriarch Gu that he can work for me for the next 3 years." But Martial Emperor wouldn't kill him for no reason. Luli left the hall. A lord was waiting for him outside. He handed an interspatial ring to Luli and said, "This is the benefit for registered disciples. You can come here to pick it up once a year. There are also the sect rules of our Heavenly Emperor's sect inside. Read it carefully. If you violate the sect rules, you will be put to death immediately." With that said, the Lord left right away as if he was tired of talking to Luli. Luli had to put away the interspatial ring. He went down the mountain the way he came and went to the castle. Martial Emperor was still sitting under the tree outside the castle. Seeing Luli coming, Martial Emperor nodded and said, "Come with me." Martial Emperor went into the castle with Luli following him. There was a portal in the castle. Martial Emperor went in. Luli felt troubled. He made up his mind to follow Martial Emperor and disappeared into the castle. In another castle on the hillside, Emperor Rue and Emperor Hung were playing chess in the backyard. After Martial Emperor took Luli away, Emperor Hung said with a bitter smile, "Martial Emperor, you really do not wait for revenge overnight. Luli is going to suffer this time. Emperor Rue, why didn't you do something earlier and bring that punk here to follow you?" Emperor Rue smiled and said, "If I didn't do anything, the punk could have survived. Do you think he could have survived if he had followed me?" "That's true. Emperor Hung picked up his teacup and took a sip. Then, he said, the martial emperor probably hates this brat to the bone. He doesn't even care about his face anymore. If you protect him, you will anger the martial emperor even more. At that time, he will think of ways to kill him. You're right. Emperor Rue nodded and sighed. You can be a thief for 1,000 days, but you cannot guard against a thief for 1,000 days. Can I protect that punk for a lifetime? He is just a registered disciple. Even if he is killed quietly, the sect will not say anything. At the end of the day, the Heaven Emperor sect belongs to the major families. How about we go head-to-head as well? Emperor Hung thought about it and said, I heard that Guan Qinqiu is close to Martial Emperor. If Martial Emperor doesn't respect us, we don't have to respect him. Just give that kid a little trouble, and it'll be enough to make him suffer a few pots. I'm not that bored. Emperor Rue shook his head and said, let's wait and see if Martial Emperor is going too far. If not, then I will let it go. For Luli, this will be a form of training. If he is going too far, then he is not giving me any face. At that time, I will either not make a move or slap that Guan clan's punk to death. I want to see what Martial Emperor can do to me. You still have the same personality. Emperor Hung smiled and said, either you don't make a move, or you make a move to your death. Leave no way out. Those of us who grew up in a poor family are basically like this. Emperor Rue revealed a trace of coldness in his eyes and said, it is not that we don't want to leave a way out. Sometimes we have no way out. If we are not more ruthless to our enemies, we would have died 1,000 times. That's true. After Emperor Hung placed a chess piece, he waved his hand and said, let's not talk about this. Let's talk about that precious disciple of yours. This last Ning Shui is a good seedling. I have not congratulated you on getting your beloved disciple. This lass is very intelligent. If she is properly nurtured, I think it will not be difficult for her to break through to the arch rank. She is indeed a good seedling. Emperor Rue agreed and said, young, talented, intelligent, perceptive, and emotional quotient. There are no problems in all aspects. The only problem is that she is born in a rich family. She has not suffered since childhood and has not experienced too many life and death situations. Therefore, I'm not very optimistic about her. So what if she has broken through to the arch rank? How strong can her combat power be? She has not suffered in the past and has not experienced life and death battles. Now, you can slowly nurture her. Emperor Hung did not deny it and said, what you said, the descendants of the rich all have such shortcomings. However, the ones who control this world are still the descendants of the rich. The ones who have the strongest combat power and stand at the peak are also the descendants of the rich. Therefore, you should not think of the descendants of the rich as so weak. The fact that they can control this world shows that they are very clear about their own weaknesses and have their own ways. Perhaps. Chapter 2691. The base camp of the Celestial Emperor sect was not in the Celestial Emperor city, but in a small world. Through the refinement of many powerful saint emperors, this small world had become a land of treasures with many strange places. Yama Mountain was a strange place, one of the top 10 places in the Celestial Emperor realm. But for powerful warriors, it was a land of treasures. For average disciples, it was a land of despair. Clearly, Emperor Wu was up to no good by bringing Luli here. Even though he could not kill Luli, he would make Luli suffer for at least 3 years. After a flash of white light, Luli sensed something was wrong as well. This place was horrifying. Luli was teleported out. The first thing he saw was white thunderbolts falling from the sky like a waterfall. Half of the mountain was covered in thunderbolts, which was quite frightening. In addition to thunderbolts, there was a black haze floating in the air. Luli sensed fatal danger from the haze. He believed that if he were to get close to the haze, he would be in big trouble. Stay close. Don't blame me if you die, Emperor Wu said coldly and then rushed forward. Luli hurried to keep up. This was not a joke. If he made the wrong move, his death would be in vain. Luli followed Emperor Wu into the mountain. Emperor Wu's movements were graceful. He floated around like a gust of wind. Lu Li sped up to the top of his speed, or else he could not keep up with Emperor Wu. The Yama mountain was large. Lu Li's psychic power seemed to be limited here. He could only reach a radius of 30 miles. The deeper they went into the mountain, the thicker the black haze was. It was so dark that it felt like it was not the human world, but hell. 3 years in a place like this. Lu Li shuddered with fear. Yama, this was not the human world, but hell. Why did Emperor Wu choose a place like this to live? Or did he leave Lu Li here on purpose? After the time for half an incense stick to burn, Lu Li realized that there was no more path ahead. The black haze had covered up a large area in front of him. Lu Li could faintly see some blue light wandering in the black haze like ghosts, but he could not tell what they were. "Follow me," Emperor Wu said coldly. Then, he waved his hand and created a shield that enveloped Lu Li and himself. Emperor Wu walked in front, and the shield pushed the dark fog away. After walking in the black fog for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the road ahead finally opened up, and a valley appeared. There were divine inscriptions in this valley that blocked the black mist outside. There was also a black castle in the valley. White mist rose up from within, making the castle faintly discernible. It seemed like the martial emperor lived here. Emperor Wu poured out a ray of Xian energy. A small door appeared in the shield. He walked in with Lu Li and then deactivated the shield. SS. As soon as Lu Li entered, he felt as if he had been thrown into an ice house. His body was frozen, and even his eyebrows and beard were frozen. He couldn't even move. Seeing that he had stopped in place, Martial Emperor said coldly, "Get used to it first. You're too useless if you can't even stand this little chill. Later on, go to that small house and stay there. 5 days later, help me gather the divine materials. This old man wants to forge a weapon." With that said, Emperor Wu left. When Lu Li entered a castle, he said coldly, "Don't go out. Don't blame me if you die." Emperor Wu went into the castle. Lu Li did not move. He sat on the ground and cultivated for a while, using divine energy to drive away the cold. It was too cold here, even colder than the cave of ice. Lu Li could not feel the cold in the cave of ice. But here, he could feel the coldness invading his soul. It was so cold that it reached his bones. Lu Li cultivated for an hour before he could get used to the coldness. He walked toward the cabin, shivering. The cabin was only 100 feet away. Lu Li would stop for a while. It took him the time, for over a dozen breaths, to get into the cabin. There was nothing inside. Lu Li asked Blood Fairy to set up a divine inscription at once. Blood Fairy came out and began to set up a divine inscription. However, Lu Li did not feel warm. He was still freezing cold. Blood Fairy said, "Master, it is so cold here because of the white mist. The mist has filled up the space. Therefore, it is useless to set up a divine inscription." "Then never mind." Lu Li waved his hand. "There are divine inscriptions in this valley. You can go and study them, but do not make any changes. You will not trigger the divine inscription. Do you understand?" "Yes," Blood Fairy replied. Then, she went underground to study the divine inscriptions. Lu Li continued to struggle against the coldness. If he could not find a way to get used to the coldness, he would not even be able to move. How could he help Emperor Wu? Should I try to absorb some of the coldness? Lu Li sat with his legs crossed. He used divine energy to absorb the coldness. His body was filled with coldness. It would be easier for him to get used to it. A moment later, he realized that he could not absorb the coldness. This was a headache. He thought for a while and then used the trace of the Great Path. Years ago, he used the trace of the Great Path to absorb the primordial chaos. He wanted to see if he could absorb the coldness. Yes, after he used the trace of the Great Path, he noticed that the coldness was being absorbed and gathered at his abdomen, the same as when he absorbed the primordial chaos. When the coldness entered his body, Lu Li noticed a problem. His body was completely frozen. When the coldness entered his body, he could not adapt to it. Instead, he felt even more uncomfortable. He had turned into an ice sculpture. He could not even move his fingers. I need to find a way to absorb the coldness into my acupoints. Luli realized that there was only one way. Just like before, he could absorb the primordial chaos into his acupoints. In this way, not only could he solve the problem, but he could also strengthen his body. He calmed himself down and began to think. In 3 days, he had successfully absorbed the coldness into his acupoints and transformed it into a special kind of energy. When the coldness was absorbed, Luli could clearly feel his body was strengthening. He was overjoyed. After absorbing some of the coldness, he was not as afraid of the cold anymore. Clearly, he could stand it now. Go on. Emperor Wu told Luli to go and find him in 5 days. Luli did not have time for that. He kept on absorbing the coldness. The more coldness he absorbed, the stronger his body would be. It also meant that he would be less afraid of the coldness. As he had expected, after another 2 days, Luli felt his body had improved. More importantly, he was not afraid of the coldness anymore. His movements were not affected, but his speed and abilities were still suppressed. He walked out and entered the castle where the martial emperor resided. Upon entering, he saw a large hall where the martial emperor resided. In the hall was a huge cauldron. Emperor Wu was sitting next to the cauldron, looking at a piece of paper with a frown. Luli's entrance startled Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu looked at Luli in surprise and asked, "How did you do it?" Luli blinked in confusion. Emperor Wu asked again, "How did you suppress the coldness here?" Emperor Wu gave Luli 5 days, but that was just a casual remark. As far as Emperor Wu was concerned, there was no way Luli could stand the coldness here, and Luli would have to beg Emperor Wu for help. However, Luli could resist the coldness here after 5 days of cultivation. Of course, Luli would not tell Emperor Wu about the trace of the Great Tao. He explained, "Lord Emperor Wu, I have absorbed some coldness and I can stand it." Nonsense. Chapter 2692. The frigid air here was not average. It was the frigid air from the bottom of the Yama mountain, one of the most powerful ones in the endless ruins of divinity. The reason why there was so much frigid air in the valley was that Emperor Wu had someone build a divine pattern to absorb the frigid air from underground. The frigid air was powerful. Average warriors at the peak of the Four Tribulation would be frozen and seriously injured as soon as they came in. Luli's physical body was stronger, but he was already impressed that he could stand it. But Emperor Wu didn't expect that Luli could absorb it. This was no ordinary cold chi, but cold origin chi. Ordinary people wouldn't even be able to absorb it. Just absorbing it into their bodies would cause major problems. That was why Emperor Wu was so surprised. Luli touched his nose embarrassedly and said, "I just casually absorbed the cold air into my body and then spread the cold air around my body. Maybe it's because I cultivate a supreme divine body that I can absorb the cold air so easily." Emperor Wu was confused. There were warriors cultivating supreme bodies in the endless ruins of divinity, but none of them achieved much. Some reached the Emperor realm, but none reached the Saint Emperor realm. Therefore, Emperor Wu didn't know much about the supreme body. He used psychic power to check Lu Li's body and murmured, "Freak." Buzzing, Emperor Wu didn't waste time. He took out a bead and said, "Take this bead and go out to collect materials. This book has all the materials that need to be collected and how to do it. You must collect them in 3 months, or you will be punished according to the rules. When you go out, do not touch the places where thunderbolts are falling. If you are struck by thunderbolts, you will die for sure. This bead will protect you from the toxic fog. Do not break it. Off you go." Emperor Wu just gave Luli a book and a bead and left him alone. Luli walked out with the bead and the book. His face was clouded with anger. Clearly, Emperor Wu was torturing him. It was difficult to collect the materials in 3 months. Emperor Wu's statement of punishment was targeted at Luli. Luli had a book of rules, but he didn't have the time to read it. It was said that the Celestial Emperor's sect had strict rules. If a martial emperor wanted to punish him, the punishment would definitely be very severe. Suffering was a small matter, but he was afraid that he would be imprisoned for 10,000 years. At that time, where would he go to seek justice? Luli went back to his cabin. The first thing he did was to flip through the booklet. The booklet had a clear record. All the materials were not only described in words, but there were also portraits. The quantity of the materials was clearly stated, including how to collect them. There were more than 30 types of divine materials in total. You didn't have a lot of them, and you would need dozens of portions of each type. According to common sense, it shouldn't be particularly difficult to collect, and it shouldn't be a problem to collect it within 3 months. That being said, Emperor Wu was clearly making things difficult for Lu Li. Therefore, Lu Li did not believe that he could finish the task so easily. He sat for a moment, then called Blood Fairy back. Then he strode outside. Lu Li frowned as he approached the shield. He did not know how to open a shield. Should he ask Blood Fairy to do it by force? At that time, a martial emperor would definitely be alerted. "Master, just walk out of here," Blood Fairy replied. "This divine glyph is only used to protect us from the poisonous black mist. It won't affect us if we go out, but it will be troublesome to come in." "Oh, I see." Lu Li took out the cyan bead that martial emperor gave him. He poured in divine energy, and the bead glowed. A cyan shield came out and enveloped Lu Li. Lu Li stepped into the divine glyph and went through it easily. The shield blocked off the poisonous mist. Lu Li strode forward. In the time for 1 incense stick to burn, he was out of the poisonous mist. "Blood Fairy, I'll send you some information. Go underground and search for these divine materials." Lu Li sent the information of all the materials to Blood Fairy. She snuck out from Lu Li's body and went underground to investigate. Lu Li wandered around in a leisurely manner. Blood Fairy was the main force in the investigation. It would be inefficient for Lu Li to go alone. What was more, there were many poisonous mist and thunderbolts. It would be dangerous for Lu Li to wander around. Blood Fairy was a virtual body. She would be fine no matter how Lu Li wandered around. "Master, there are materials to your left," Blood Fairy said after the time for half an incense stick to burn. Lu Li hurried to the left. Up ahead, there was a cloud of poisonous mist. Lu Li used the bead at once to build up a cyan shield. He did not know what the poisonous mist was, but not even martial emperors dare to touch it. How could Lu Li have the courage to do so? Dozens of miles later, Lu Li found where Blood Fairy was. There was indeed a material there, a type of red grass. There was a lot of it, enough for Lu Li's needs. Lu Li collected the grasses quickly. He collected hundreds of them easily, which was more than what a martial emperor needed. Lu Li was relieved to find a material so easily. In total, there were 36 kinds of materials. At this rate, he believed he could collect them all in a month. Lu Li asked Blood Fairy to continue exploring. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Blood Fairy found another kind of material. However, when Lu Li found it, he realized it was difficult to collect. There were thunderbolts around the material. An area with a radius of several miles was enveloped by thunderbolts. If Lu Li wanted to collect this material, he would have to go through the thunderbolts, or else he would not be able to do so. Martial Emperor once told Lu Li not to touch the thunderbolts, or he would die for sure. Therefore, Lu Li was scared. He did not know what to do. Lu Li tried to get close to the thunderbolts. Before he got close, he sensed a fatal danger. Those thunderbolts were stronger than all the ones he had encountered. He could not take the risk. "Let's go." He told Blood Fairy to leave. He wanted to look elsewhere. What if there were such materials in other places? In that case, he would not have to take the risk. Blood Fairy wandered on. Lu Li found more and more materials. It was easy for him to collect them. Half a month had passed. Lu Li had collected more than 20 kinds of materials. Today he stopped. He put on a bitter smile. Blood Fairy had found the rest of the materials. The problem was that the remaining materials were mainly concentrated in 2 places. One was in the thunderbolts, and the other was in the small ponds. These were not regular ponds. The water in the ponds frightened Lu Li, even more so than the heaven water. Lu Li did not have the courage to go down and collect them. He still had 11 kinds of materials in the thunderbolts and in the ponds. Even Martial Emperor said that he could not touch the thunderbolts. Lu Li believed he could not go down to the ponds. Otherwise, he would not be able to come back up. In other words, he had reached a dead end. Clearly, Martial Emperor was punishing him. He must know that many materials were in the thunderbolts and the pawns. Yet, Martial Emperor asked Lu Li to collect them on purpose and warned Lu Li not to touch the thunderbolts. In other words, Martial Emperor had given Lu Li an impossible task. If Lu Li could not complete the task, he would be punished according to the rules of the sect. In other words, Martial Emperor was going to punish Lu Li in a roundabout way. Lu Li took out the rules of the sect and read. His anger grew. According to the rules, if Lu Li could not complete the task given by Martial Emperor, he would be grounded for 3 months or expelled from the sect. Lu Li did not mind being expelled. After all, it was unlikely that a registered disciple could become a formal disciple. Lu Li was afraid that Martial Emperor would use his power to avenge a personal grudge and lock him up for 10,000 years. Yes. Chapter 2693. Lu Li stood at the foot of a mountain. The entire mountain was filled with thunderbolts. It was like a waterfall falling from the sky. It was a magnificent view. Lu Li stood at the foot of the mountain. He could feel the pressure from the thunderbolts. The thunderbolts were so strong that Lu Li was not sure if he could survive them. He had no other choice but to make up his mind. First, he told Blood Fairy to build a divine pattern at the foot of the mountain to see if she could use the divine pattern field to weaken the thunderbolts. Unfortunately, the field was smashed as soon as it was activated. It was not realistic to count on the divine pattern. Moo! Lu Li took a deep breath and slowly walked up the mountain. He walked slowly and his body was tense. He had released Dragon Wrestler and Heaven Armor. Without the 2 skills, he would not have the courage to go up. 1,000 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet. The thunderbolts were right in front of him. Every thunderbolt contained an arc. Lu Li knew that as he moved forward, there would be more thunderbolts. The nearby ones would attack him as well. He pressed on. Just as he had expected, after a dozen steps, 2 thunderbolts came at him. Then, the 2 thunderbolts made a turn and came at him. He did not step back. He let the 2 thunderbolts entangle him. The moment the thunderbolts entangled him, he smelled burnt flesh. He felt pain all over his body. Without any hesitation, he rolled over and stepped back. He rolled for thousands of feet before the 2 bolts of lightning retracted. His entire body was charred, and he was still trembling. His eyes were filled with pain and sadness. He could not stand the thunderbolts. Not only did the thunderbolts contain destructive force, but there was also a strange force that could destroy his life force. If he tried to hold on, he would soon become a dead body and be blasted into dust. 2 thunderbolts had almost wounded him. If he were to go in and collect materials, he would have to face thousands of thunderbolts. He would be turned into dust before he could collect any material. Lu Li sat up with his legs crossed and took out some elixirs to treat his wounds. At the same time, he began to think. After recuperating for half a day, his injuries were more or less healed. However, he did not immediately take action. Instead, he continued to recuperate. A day later, he stood up with a determined look in his eyes. He continued to stride forward. This time, he took out the 7-colored glazed pagoda and placed it above his head. This was a sovereign weapon that had the reincarnation Emperor seal of law. Therefore, he believed that this sovereign weapon could not be destroyed. As long as the sovereign weapon could help him hold on for a while, he would be able to quickly collect the divine materials inside. He controlled the 7-colored glazed pagoda to become bigger. It floated above his head like a small mountain, covering the sky above his head. Once again, he arrived near the lightning and followed the 7-colored glazed pagoda. Swish! 3 bolts of lightning came, followed by more thunderbolts. What annoyed Lu Li was, the thunderbolts didn't go to the 7-colored glazed pagoda. Instead, they went around the 7-colored glazed pagoda to attack him directly. Once again, Lu Li rolled down. His body was charred again with black smoke coming out. Lu Li forced a smile. He had overthought. The thunderbolts would only attack living beings. Unless he went into the 7-colored glazed pagoda, the thunderbolts would come at him from all directions. He sat down to tend his wounds. At the same time, he wondered if he could go into the 7-colored glazed pagoda. Could he fly to the peak and used the suction force of the seven-colored glazed pagoda to suck in the divine crystals? It was a good idea, but he was not sure if it could be carried out. A day later, Lu Li's wounds were healed again. He decided to give it a try. He went into the seven-colored glazed pagoda and flew toward the thunderbolts. The seven-colored glazed pagoda glowed in 7 colors. Mysterious runes wandered around, and a faint glow surrounded the pagoda. The sovereign weapon spread out as it flew toward the thunderbolts. *T. As he approached the thunderbolts, Lu Li was dumbfounded. Several bolts of thunderbolts shot into the seven-colored glazed pagoda and then penetrated through, hitting him with unerring accuracy. The seven-colored glazed pagoda showed no reaction, as if the thunderbolts were invisible. Little Lu, don't struggle. The blood-evil emperor couldn't stand it anymore. He said, don't think about using your artifact. The thunderbolts here are like the chaotic thunder over there. As long as you get close, you will be hit no matter what you do. You have to take it head on. If it were up to you, just don't dodge. Let the thunderbolts hit you. You will not die. Lu Li had just flown the seven-colored glazed pagoda away when he heard the blood-evil emperor's words. He thought he had heard it wrong. He sat with his legs crossed and took some healing pellets before he replied. Lord Evil Emperor, are you kidding me? It is just a few bolts of thunderbolts, and I'm already badly injured. If there are more thunderbolts, I will be blasted into ashes. Have you forgotten that you have a relic? The blood-evil emperor replied, when your source of life energy is damaged to a certain extent, that thing will come to protect you. Thunderbolts can destroy as well as regenerate. In this way, your physical body can be improved quickly. Your physical body has reached the peak of the fifth tribulation. Without the thunderbolts in heaven and earth to refine your body, it will be too difficult for you to consume the elixir. You mean? Lu Li was taken aback. He asked, Lord Evil Emperor, are you talking about the chains of order? For a moment, Lu Li had forgotten about this miraculous item. Something like this had happened before. When his source of life energy was depleted to a certain extent, the chains of order would protect its owner. If the chains of order could keep his source of life energy from drying up, then he would not die. He could also refine his body with the help of thunderbolts and improve quickly. Okay, when I am healed, I will have a try. The words of the blood-evil emperor had given Lu Li courage. It was also because the chains of order had protected its owner before. Lu Li sat down with his legs crossed to tend to his wounds. At the same time, he began to think about how he could absorb the energy of thunderbolts to improve his physical body if the chains of order were to protect him. A day later, Lu Li's wounds were healed. He flew out from the seven-colored glazed pagoda and dashed toward the thunderbolts with determination. This time, he went directly to the outer area where there were at least dozens of thunderbolts. If the chains of order were not there to protect its owner, he would die for sure. Boom, 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 boom. As soon as Lu Li dashed in, dozens of thunderbolts came at him. Lu Li's body was enveloped in a white glow. Countless thunderbolts entangled him. The overbearing energy contained in the thunderbolts began to destroy his source of life energy. Buzzing, just as Lu Li was about to pass out, a divine chain of order in one of his bones finally glowed. Lu Li's life force was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if the glow from the divine chain of order was the best medicine in the world. Okay, Lu Li was in great pain. That being said, he didn't care about anything else. He sat on the ground with his legs crossed and used the trace of Tao to guide the energy from the thunderbolts to his acupoints. His acupoints absorbed the energy from the thunderbolts and grew stronger. Soon, surges of energy surged out from his acupoints to repair Lu Li's body. At the same time, more thunderbolts came down, tearing apart and destroying Lu Li's body bit by bit. Destruction, rebirth, destruction, and rebirth. Chapter 2694. It had been a long time since Lu Li's physical body had been improved. At this level, it was too difficult to improve. Consuming regular elixirs was no different than consuming none. They could not improve his physical strength by much. Even if Lu Li were to search for thunderbolts and flames, it would be hard for him to improve. However, the thunderbolts here were so powerful that they could improve his physical body so quickly. At this moment, Lu Li even forgot to collect the materials. The improvement of his physical body was more important than anything else. He entered the state of illusion. While absorbing the energy of thunderbolts to improve his physical body, he began to observe the miraculous divine chains of order. He had been trying to control the chains. Unfortunately, he had not found a way after such a long time. Apart from the fact that the chains were inside and outside of his body, they were strange to him. At the moment, the chains were glowing. Lu Li wanted to take this chance to observe and see if he could find a way to control them. Once the chains could be put to use, Lu Li's abilities would soar. Time flew by. Soon, half a month had passed. Lu Li didn't even notice that the improvement of his physical body had slowed down. In merely half a month, his physical body had been improved by at least a dozen times. Previously, his physical body was as strong as a warrior at the peak of the fifth tribulation. Now, it was as strong as a lord of the sixth tribulation. If he were to use the dragon wrestling skill, his physical body would be 10 times stronger, and he would be as strong as a warrior at the middle stage of the sixth tribulation. He was only at the peak of the fourth tribulation, but his physical body was as strong as a warrior at the middle stage of the sixth tribulation. That was the advantage of cultivating an immortal body. If Lu Li's physical body could keep improving without making a breakthrough in his realm, then his physical body could be as strong as a quasi-emperor. Of course, the further he progressed, the more difficult it was to cultivate. Now, the improvement of his physical body was slowing down. He must have absorbed too much energy of thunderbolts, and his body had developed resistance. During the half a month, Lu Li made no progress with the chains of order. He didn't stop cultivating and kept on absorbing thunderbolts. Now, he could almost resist this lightning, and it was very difficult for lightning to cause too much damage to him. This was also the reason why the growth of his physical body had slowed down. The reason why his physical body could improve so quickly was that the thunderbolts were tearing apart his body and then regenerating it. That was how he could grow stronger. Now that it couldn't be destroyed, it naturally couldn't be reborn, and its growth would slow down. 3 days later, Lu Li opened his eyes. He strode into the center of thunderbolts. Thousands of thunderbolts whooshed down and surrounded him. However, they could not inflict serious damage on him, only minor injuries. Lu Li collected the materials quickly and left at once. He went to other areas with thunderbolts. There were still some materials there. Now that he could stand the thunderbolts, he must collect them as soon as possible. 2 days later, Lu Li had collected 7 kinds of materials in the area with thunderbolts. He only had 4 left to collect, and they were all in the pond. If he wanted to collect more, he must go to the pond. Only 1.5 months had passed. Lu Li still had 1.5 months. He was not in a hurry. He continued to refine his body in the thunderbolts. The improvement of his body was slow, but it was faster than consuming elixirs. Every day he stayed in the lightning was equivalent to refining a few hundred stalks of godly medicine. After another 5 days of cultivation, Lu Li's progress was even slower. Finally, he left for the pond. He walked into a small pond, and Blood Fairy followed him. The pond was small, only with a radius of 1,000 feet. It was not deep either. The deepest part of the pond was over 100 feet deep. At the bottom of the pond grew some purple aquatic plants, which was one of the materials needed by martial emperors. The water in the pool was not transparent, nor was it black. Instead, it was brown like blood, sticky and viscous. Lu Li looked into the distance. He could see bubbles popping up on the surface of the water. There was nothing in the pond, no beasts, no living creatures. Theoretically speaking, the water should not be dangerous. However, when Lu Li walked to the pond, he sensed a fatal danger from the depth of his soul. He believed that if he jumped in, he would turn into a skeleton immediately. Bang! Standing by the pond, Lu Li generated a handprint. If it were regular water, half of the water in the pond would evaporate. However, when Luli slapped down, nothing happened in the water. There weren't even any ripples. It didn't feel like a person, but more like an iron wall. Luli moved a boulder nearby and threw into the pond. Luli thought there would be a splash, but the boulder dived in and then disappeared. The pond was still as an ancient well. There was not even a ripple. Luli tried many other ways. However, the pond was like a beast. Anything that entered the pond would disappear, and there would be no ripples in the pond. Luli wanted to let Holy King's daughter have a try, but he did not dare to do so now. What if Holy King's daughter was smashed into pieces as well? Luli used psychic power to ask Blood Evil Emperor, "Evil Emperor, you are experienced and knowledgeable. Do you know what this water is?" "There is no such water in the third heaven." The Blood Evil Emperor said, "But I've read an ancient book which recorded some strange stories about the fourth heaven. There seems to be a description of this water. If I'm not wrong, it should be called Schwanchen heavy water, profound heavy water." Luli curled his lips. The name was strange. He could not infer the nature of the water from the name. Luli asked, "Then, Evil Emperor, what is special about this water? How can we solve it?" "The special characteristic of this water is that it's heavy. A single drop of water is comparable to a mountain. This water is a supreme treasure for smithing. This water shouldn't be naturally here. It should be collected from other places by the supreme experts of the Heavenly Emperor sect and placed here for smithing. The water can cultivate some super powerful materials. The aquatic grasses in the water are such materials." Heavy. Luli was even more confused. He asked, "How come when I throw a boulder in, it disappears as soon as it goes in? Also, when I attack, how come there is no ripple in the water?" "That is simple," Blood Evil Emperor explained. "The water is actually moving. Every drop of water is moving. It's just that you cannot see it. Think about it. Every drop of water is as heavy as a mountain. When you throw a boulder in, you will be crushed by many mountains. You will be crushed, right? As for your attacks, the water is heavy. It can withstand your attacks easily. Also, the water is moving and passing on the force. Not even a lord's attack can make the water ripple, let alone you." Luli had an image in his mind. Many huge iron balls were gathered together and moving. A kid was patting on the iron balls. He was counting on the iron balls to keep vibrating. Every drop of water was as heavy as a mountain. They were moving and passing on the force. Many mountains were moving. Anything that entered the mountains would be crushed into dust. What should I do? Luli was troubled. He felt he could not solve the problem. If he could not get the materials, he would still be troubled by martial emperors. I don't have a solution. Chapter 2695. What else could Luli do? He had to experiment. He even took out a powerful weapon and put it into the water. But it was crushed into dust. In the end, he made up his mind. He used Dragon Wrestler in heaven armor and reached his hand into the water. However, as soon as his finger touched the profound, heavy water, it was crushed. Luli's body was as strong as a warrior at the middle stage of the Sixth Tribulation after he used Dragon Wrestler. Yet, he could not stand the profound, heavy water and was crushed into dust. Luli could not take the risk. He might not even be able to take out a sovereign weapon. If he flew in with the seven-colored glazed pagoda and the sovereign weapon was crushed as well, it would be a great loss. Half a day later, Luli came up with an idea. He said to Blood Fairy, "Blood Fairy, try to decipher the rune at the bottom of the pond. Then, try to build a similar rune to divert the water to the side." The water was heavy. If it were not for the divine pattern, the Yama mountain would have been covered in holes. The heavy water would have gone underground. Luli found out that there was a divine pattern at the bottom of the pond. Just as the Blood Emperor said, the heavy water was not naturally here. Powerful warriors of the Celestial Emperor sect moved it here from other places. Therefore, if Blood Fairy could crack the divine pattern and divert the water, Luli would be able to collect the materials at the bottom. Blood Fairy went to check at once. There was nothing Luli could do. He sat on the side and waited. Days passed by without any news from Blood Fairy. Luli decided to go to the nearby Thunderbolts to refine his body. After all, waiting here was pointless. Going to the thunderbolts could strengthen his body. Soon, several days had passed. There was still no news from Blood Fairy. Luli decided to just let it go. He had no other choice. If Blood Fairy could not crack the divine pattern, then he would have to go back and beg for forgiveness. By then, Martial Emperor would punish him however he wanted. Time flew by. 2 days before the 3-month deadline, Blood Fairy finally transmitted her voice to Qin Wentian. Master, it's done. I can decipher this divine inscription. Give me half a day's time. I'll set up one nearby to prevent the profound heavy water from escaping. Luli nodded. The strange water must be the most precious treasure of the Heaven Emperor's sect. If all the water were to seep into the ground and disappear, a martial emperor would tear him apart. Luli kept using psychic power to check on Blood Fairy while cultivating. Half a day later, Blood Fairy's voice came through. Master, everything is ready. Shall we begin? Blood Fairy had placed the glyphs below the original glyphs. That way, when he broke through the glyphs, the heavy water would flow down, and the materials at the bottom of the pool would be easy to collect. Blood Fairy activated the divine inscriptions, then deciphered the divine inscriptions on the surface. The pool of water shook violently, and then, as if a hole had appeared, the profound, heavy water rapidly flowed down. The water in the pool gradually decreased, and finally, all of it flowed into the ground, leaving behind a huge hole. Well done! Luli was overjoyed. He went to collect all the materials at once. Then, he waved his hand and said, Blood Fairy, hurry up and collect the remaining 3 materials. It's too late. The Blood Emperor said, Punk, you have lost track of time in cultivation. There is only 1 day left until the 3-month deadline. You should go back as soon as possible. I think Martial Emperor will not only not punish you, but he will also see you in a different light. Only 1 day left? Luli was taken aback. He put away Blood Fairy and walked toward the valley. The Blood Evil Sovereign couldn't help but exclaim, Little brat Lu, you have to nurture this succubus of yours well. If she can advance 1 or 2 more times, she can study divine inscriptions for thousands or tens of thousands of years. By then, she will definitely become a Grandmaster Divine Inscriptions. Yes. Luli nodded. He made up his mind. If there was a chance, he would find more high-level materials and see if Blood Fairy could consume them. It would be perfect if she could evolve 1 or 2 more times. Soon, Luli arrived at the edge of the black fog. He took out that bead and snuck in. There was a shield outside the valley. This time, Luli cannot go in. He had to attack to make the shield tremble. Buzzing a moment later, the shield glowed. A small door appeared. Luli stepped through the door and emerged in the valley. As soon as he entered the valley, he noticed something. The cold air here could not harm him at all. His physical body had been strengthened. He could stand the cold air easily now. Luli gazed at the castle. After a moment, he made up his mind and walked toward the castle. As soon as he stepped into the castle, he noticed a foul atmosphere. Martial Emperor was bending over and staring at the stove. His robe and beard were covered in soot. His face was black as well. He did not even look at Luli. He was staring into the stove. Luli did not dare to disturb Martial Emperor. He had to wait. 2 hours later, the fire in the stove died down. Martial Emperor opened the stove and took a look. His face darkened, and he began to curse. At this moment, the feeling that the Martial Emperor gave Luli was not that of a supreme warrior, but a master of artifact forging, the kind with an eccentric temper. After a while of cursing, Martial Emperor turned to Luli. He was even more upset. He glared at Luli and said, What are you waiting for? Have you finished what I told you? Luli's heart was weighed down. Martial Emperor must have failed. He must be in a bad mood. Would Martial Emperor kill Luli in a fit of anger because he did not finish the task? But Luli was angry at the thought that he could not finish the task. He had done so much. If Martial Emperor still wanted to make trouble for him, then Luli would not show mercy. At least, he would die with dignity. Luli took out his interspatial ring, handed it over with respect, and said, Lord Martial Emperor, 3 months is not enough. Therefore, there's still 3 kinds of materials that I have yet to collect. Please give me 10 more days. I will finish all the materials and skills. There are 3 more? Martial Emperor's eyes popped out. He took over the interspatial ring and took a look. He was even more shocked. He turned to Lu Li and was surprised again. How come your physical body has improved so much in just a couple of months? Lu Li asked. Lu Li touched his head and said, there are many materials in the area covered by thunderbolts. I had no choice but to rush in. I was almost killed. Luckily, I survived. My body absorbed some energy from the thunderbolts, so I have improved a bit. You can stand the thunderbolts? Martial Emperor found it hard to believe. Then he remembered something and asked, what about the profound water of heavy water? Don't tell me that you are still alive and kicking in the profound water of heavy water? Not really. Lu Li touched his nose embarrassedly and said, I cracked the runes at the bottom of the pond and diverted the water away. That was how I was able to collect one kind of material. But there is not enough time for me to collect the rest of the materials. What? Martial Emperor's eyes were wide open. He dashed over, grabbed Lu Li by the neck, and lifted him up. Martial Emperor bellowed. You said you let the profound water of heavy water go? Punk, do you know how precious that water is? 1 drop of it is equal to 1 of your lives. If the water ran away, killing you 10,000 times would not be enough. Chapter 2696. A great emperor, and a powerful one at that. How terrifying was it to unleash his killing intent? At this moment, Lu Li felt like he couldn't breathe and his blood was frozen. Lu Li said at once, Lord Emperor Wu, the heavy water did not seep away. I built a divine pattern to keep the heavy water. Oh! Emperor Wu threw Lu Li to the side and dashed out like a gust of wind. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, he came back. He stared at Lu Li with mixed feelings and asked, you know about divine patterns? Lu Li nodded and said, a little. You call this a little bit? Emperor Wu glared at Lu Li and said, that divine pattern was built by a powerful warrior in our sect. You can crack it easily. You call that a little? Excessive modesty is arrogance. I hate hypocrites the most. Lu Li touched his nose and said nothing else. Emperor Wu thought for a while and said, there are 3 more materials that you haven't collected, but you have accomplished your task. You don't have to collect the other 3. We still have some in storage. Stay here for half a month. After that, you can help me with the artifact forging and go out. Emperor Wu waved his hand. Lu Li walked out and went back to the cabin. Lu Li was relieved. The blood-evil emperor was right. Instead of punishing Lu Li, Emperor Wu had changed his opinion of Lu Li. Lu Li sat for a while. He had nothing to do, so he decided to absorb the cold air outside. The cold air could strengthen his body. There was cold air coming out from underground. It would be a waste not to absorb it. While Lu Li was absorbing the cold air, he was consolidating the soul skill he learned. This skill could condense soul energy into wind and kill people from thousands of miles away. It was domineering. Even though he had learned it, he still needed to consolidate it. Half a month later, the wind soul was consolidated and he had absorbed a lot of cold air. Lu Li's body was further improved, but not by much, only 2 or 3 times. For his current physical strength, 2 or 3 times was equal to consuming tens of thousands of elixirs. Emperor Wu was reading an ancient book in the hall. He threw a casual look at Lu Li and was surprised again. Punk, your physical strength has improved again? 2 or 3 times. This time, Lu Li did not pretend to be modest. He explained, I have absorbed some cold air and my physical strength has improved. Freak! Emperor Wu pouted. He threw some books to Lu Li and said, take a look and learn all the information. In a couple of days, help me forge artifacts. If something goes wrong and I lose control of myself in a fit of anger, you will be in danger. Lu Li took over the books at once. He was relieved. They were all books on forging artifacts with introductions of various materials and some basic knowledge about forging artifacts. Naturally, The methods of forging artifacts in the endless ruins were much more complicated and mysterious than those in the divinity. However, Luli had a certain foundation in forging artifacts, so he could understand them at first glance. Of course, he did not dare to be careless. A few days ago, a martial emperor had failed to refine a weapon. That appearance was very frightening. If he were to fail because of his mistake, he would really be torn apart. Luli studied for several days and gained a clear understanding of all the materials. He also memorized the steps and tricks of forging artifacts. Luli was curious about what kind of weapon Martial Emperor was going to make. Could he be forging a monarch weapon? Luli had a monarch weapon, and he had seen many, but he did not know how to forge a monarch weapon. Emperor Wu seemed to be ready as well. He looked at Luli and asked, "Are you done? Are there any problems?" "I don't think so," Luli replied. "What do you mean by I don't think so?" Emperor Wu glared at Luli and yelled, "Yes means yes, and no means no. Let me tell you, if something goes wrong, you will lose your life." What else could Luli say? He made up his mind and said, "Lord, I am fine." "Okay." Emperor Wu waved his hand and said, "Go to the side hall over there and take out 100 purple phosphorus stones, 100 pieces of mixed flame stones, 100 portions of whiskey powder, 100. Emperor Wu listed dozens of materials in one go. Luli went to the side hall and took them out soon. There was nothing wrong. When he was forging artifacts, these were all basic skills. Naturally, he would not have any problems with this. Emperor Wu nodded and then patted that huge tripod stove. The stove glowed. Emperor Wu looked at Luli and said, "Put 3 purple phosphorus stones, 3 pieces of mixed flame stones, and 3 portions of whiskey powder in there." Luli took out the materials at once and put them into the stove accurately. His movements were natural, and he did not seem to be in a hurry. Emperor Wu raised his eyebrows and asked, "Have you ever forged artifacts before?" Luli answered honestly, "Yes, I learned it for a while, but I only know a little." "Oh." Emperor Wu answered indifferently and began to work on the artifact. He asked Luli to put in more materials while he engraved various patterns and marks of laws into the embryo. A piece of meteoric iron, 3 pieces of half-moon stone. Heat up the stove, activate the patterns, and guide the frigid energy. It is about to take shape. Okay, turn off the patterns at once. There is too much frigid energy. Emperor Wu gave orders, and Luli carried them out with precision. Emperor Wu was sweating, and so were Luli's palms. This was a matter of his life. If something went wrong, who knew what Emperor Wu would do in a fit of rage? Emperor Wu worked from morning to midnight. Finally, he stopped. He waved his hand to let Luli rest while he kept an eye on the stove. He kept an eye on it until midnight. The next day, Emperor Wu shouted again for Luli to cooperate. "Open." In the afternoon, Emperor Wu patted the stove, and the lid was opened. A glaring sword flew out. Emperor Wu grabbed it with one hand. He took a look and laughed, "Ha ha ha ha, good. I have made it." Luli was taken aback after a few glances. Sure enough, Emperor Wu was making a weapon. This weapon was similar to a sovereign weapon, but much weaker. It must be nurtured by a warrior at the great emperor realm for many years and refined for many years. The martial emperor brandished the divine weapon a few times before nodding his head in satisfaction. "Brat, you've done well this time. Your previous mistakes are written off. This old man is very clear about gratitude and grudges. I will not target you in the future. In the next couple of years, help me forge artifacts and cultivate. Try to pass the assessment and become an official disciple of the Heaven Emperor sect." "Thank you, Lord Emperor Wu." Luli bowed and breathed in relief. This Emperor Wu was a straightforward man. He would speak his mind and would not hold back. Since this man had spoken, he would not deliberately make things difficult for Luli. Luli's life in the future would be easier. Assessment. Luli felt troubled at the thought of the assessment. It was said that the assessment was harsh. Usually, only 1 out of 10 could stay. Sometimes none could stay. 3 years was a short time. Could Luli's abilities improve by leaps and bounds? Could he pass the assessment? Tribulation, the 5th one. Chapter 2697. Tribulation. Luli was troubled. He had the help of Tianya for the first two tribulations. The fifth one was beyond the help of others, not even emperors. Luli had to rely on himself. But he was not sure that he could survive the tribulation, especially the tribulation of mind and soul. Over the years, he had become more and more stable, and he had experienced many tribulation of mind and soul. But still, he was not sure. He had always had a strong inner demon. He had too many things to worry about and too many people to care about. Lu Ling was taken to the Holy Maiden sect, and her family in the second heaven was in the dark. Usually, the inner demon was not a big deal, but the tribulation could cost him his life. That being said, as the Blood Emperor said, if he wanted to improve his abilities quickly, tribulation was a shortcut. He had no support in the Celestial Emperor's sect, but Guan Qinxiu and the others were connected to some powerful warriors in the Celestial Emperor's sect. How could he stand out and be chosen by the Celestial Emperor's sect if he did not rely on his abilities? What was more, his foundation was not stable. He could not compare with the disciples of the famous sections. This foundation would reveal its flaws during the tribulation, and he could die easily. Never mind. Tribulation. Luli made up his mind. He had 2 years to go. During this time, he would try to stabilize his foundation. At the same time, he would use thunderbolts and cold air to refine his body, cultivate his soul, and improve his abilities. For the rest of the time, he did the same. The cold air here was endless, and he could absorb it continuously. He would cultivate divine energy and soul and study the marks he recorded in the Heaven Path realm from time to time. 3 months later, Emperor Wu sent Luli out to collect materials again, but he warned Luli not to touch the profound water again. Emperor Wu was afraid that Luli would let go of the profound water. If the profound water flowed underground, it would be difficult to get it back. Luli spent a month collecting all the materials and used thunderbolts to refine his body for half a month. When he came back, Emperor Wu was ready to make more sovereign weapons. He should be the master craftsman of the Celestial Emperor sect. He must have been the one who made all the sovereign weapons in the Celestial Emperor sect. Take a look at this booklet. This time, the relic weapon I'm going to make is more difficult. Take a closer look. Emperor Wu gave Luli a booklet. Luli read it carefully. After a day, Emperor Wu waved his hand and said, "Go and pick someone up. She is here to deliver some rare materials. I have run out of them." Luli hurried out and picked up a person at the foot of the Yama Mountain. Luli knew this person. It was Wang Ningxue, who was going to the tournament with him. Luli took a look from the distance and said in surprise, "Lady Ningxue, you have reached the 6th tribulation?" Wang Ningxue felt a sense of closeness when she saw Luli. She blushed and said, "Yes, I have Emperor Rue as my master. With my master's guidance and help, I have successfully passed the 6th heaven tribulation. I was already half a step away from the 6th tribulation realm. After joining the Celestial Arch sect, I have finally crossed this threshold. Congratulations, congratulations." Luli cupped his fists. He was envious. As the personal disciple of Emperor Rue, Wang Ningxue would be heavily nurtured by the Heaven Emperor sect. He had only joined the Heavenly Emperor sect for a few months, and he had already broken through to the 6th tribulation. His future was limitless. "Luli, how'd you been these months?" Wang Ningxue asked as she followed Luli up the mountain. She was worried. Emperor Wu was famous for his short temper in the Celestial Arch sect. "I'm fine," Luli said casually. He didn't continue the topic. He asked another question, "Lady Ningxue, where did you take the tribulation? Is there a platform here? I want to take the tribulation as well. Can I go there?" "There's a platform." Wang Ningxue nodded. Then, she said with embarrassment, "The platform here is strong. It can weaken the heaven tribulation by 30%. As for whether you can take the tribulation there, I don't know." After all, Wang Ningxue didn't finish her sentence. Luli understood. There was a huge gap between their identities. One was a formal disciple, the personal disciple of Emperor Rue, while the other was a registered disciple who was working as a servant for Emperor Wu. The difference in status was huge. Lu brought Wang Ningxue into the castle. Emperor Wu nodded to her and said, "Girl, you are talented. You have reached the sixth tribulation so soon. But you need to take part in more battles of life and death. Otherwise, your realm will be useless no matter how high you are. Go back and tell Emperor Rue that he will arrange for you to take part in more battles. Don't cultivate in the celestial Emperor universe all day." "Yes, thank you, Lord Emperor Wu." Wang Ningxue bowed and handed over the materials. Emperor Wu waved his hand and said, "Lu, send the girl down the mountain." Lu left with Wang Ningxue. Along the way, Wang Ningxue wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. When they were at the foot of the mountain, she couldn't help but say, "Lu, I think Emperor Wu is nice to you. Guan Qinxiu and Emperor Wu are relatives. I was worried that Emperor Wu would make things difficult for you. I didn't expect that he would call you Lu. He must like you." Lu didn't know about the relationship between Emperor Wu and Guan Qinxiu. It turned out that Emperor Wu was against him because of Guan Qinxiu. Luckily, Lu had passed the test. Otherwise, he would either be locked up or killed. "Where's Guan Qinxiu?" A glint of coldness rose in Lu's eyes. Guan Qinxiu was a registered disciple as well. He used to be Lu's rival, and he would be in the future. Lu wanted to get some information. "He is helping out at the Pavilion of Martial Arts." Wang Ningxue pouted and replied, "The Guan family has some influence in the Celestial Emperor's sect. They have helped him get a good position. The Pavilion of Martial Arts is for formal disciples and powerful warriors to cultivate. Guan Qinxiu can learn a lot from there. He said that he is helping out, but he is actually training him in disguise. I think he will reach the sixth tribulation in 3 years. Once he does, he will be kept by the Celestial Emperor's sect and become a formal disciple." What? Lu felt the pressure. Guan Qinxiu was only a registered disciple, but he was growing fast with the help of the Guan family. He was also enjoying the resources of the Celestial Emperor's sect. He was already 1 step away from the sixth tribulation. It was highly possible that he could reach the sixth tribulation. Once he became a lord, it would be a different world. Guan Qinxiu had a sovereign weapon. How could Lu compete with Guan Qinxiu? Guan Qinxiu would try his best to kill Lu, let alone compete with him. At the recruitment ceremony, Guan Qinxiu wanted to kill Lu. Because Lu prevented Guan Qinxiu from reaching the next rank, Guan Qinxiu must hate Lu's guts. "I will leave now. Lu, good luck." Wang Ningxue bowed and flew away. Lu sighed. He turned around and walked back up the mountain. The glow in his eyes was becoming more and more determined. He must survive the fifth tribulation, or else he would not be able to compete with Guan Qinxiu. If he could not become a formal disciple after 3 years, he would be banished from the Celestial Emperor's sect. Powerful warriors of the Guan family would secretly take action as well. The endless ruins of gods was vast, but there was no place for him. By then, he would be doomed. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.